Ayan. Hello, sound check. Attention everyone, we will now have the singing of the Philippine National Anthem to be followed by an opening prayer. Ayan, isang mainit na pagbati ng magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Thank you very much for joining us today in our webinar entitled Establishing an Effective Knowledge Management System. This webinar marks the beginning of our webinar series for 2022. And I saw familiar faces or familiar names, in the registration. So I guess I am already familiar to some of you, especially to those who have been attending our online activities since 2022. So for those who don't know me yet, I am Aileen Alice Brillo from Kabayan, Benguet, currently working as Science Research Specialist 2 here at the DOST-STII, and I am honored to be one of your moderators for today. So hindi na ako mag-isa ngayon. Good afternoon, partner. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, Irene. Thank you. Good afternoon. I am Felipe B. Seba Jr., or you can call me Philip for short. Currently working as Librarian 2 from UST FPRDI, and it is located in Los Baños, Laguna. And I am currently also serving as one of the ASFE boards. Tama ka naman, Irene. Mahirap nga talaga mag-isa. Kaya ngayon, sasamahan kita.
Ayan. Thank you so much, Philip. Ayan, kumusta naman dyan sa inyo ngayon?
Ito maayos naman at masaya. Siyempre, hashtag TGIF or Thanks God It's Friday. Pero siyempre, excited ako na makasama kayong lahat at sa webinar ngayon. Ilan siguro sa atin ay may mga KMS na or Knowledge Management System or nagpaplano mag-establish nito. Malamang siksik, liglig at umaapaw na karunungan ang mauuwi ng bawat isa sa atin. At syempre, itong seminar na to ay accredited with 2 CPD credit points. Tama ba, my partner?
Yes, tama, partner. So, itong topic din natin today is considered one of the emerging trends, not only in the field of librarianship, but also in other professions. Kasi ang KMS is applicable when we want to preserve our institutional assets. Kaya nga sa invitation natin, nakalagay everyone is invited. Kasi as much as possible, we want to include everyone or all.
Okay, speaking, as we try to make this webinar inclusive to all, we have with us 2 Filipino Sign Language interpreters. Sila si Miss Natividad P. Natividad at Mr. Bayani Generoso Jr. Good afternoon, Miss Nati and Sir Bayani. Thank you for accepting this invitation.
Ayan, this webinar is also being conducted in partnership with the Association of Special Libraries of the Philippines or ASLP. This webinar is also being aired live via our Facebook page at facebook.com/STII Library. And this is also shared in the ASLP Facebook page. So for our Zoom participants, in case you have a weak internet connection, and you are disconnected from the Zoom room, or if your screen becomes blurry, you can join us via Facebook Live because it doesn't consume lots of data. So shout out to our Facebook Live viewers. Magandang hapon po sa inyo. Ayan. So should you have friends also who were not able to receive our email invitation or who did not receive the Zoom link, kindly inform them to join us via the live streaming. And
Yes, tama. That's one of the usual downsides of internet connection, partner, yung humihina or nawawala. Mahirap talaga yun kapag minsan nawawala Anyway, katulad nga ng sinabi ni Miss Irene, kindly inform your friends and colleagues rather, to join us via Facebook Live. The live streaming is also shared in the ASLP Facebook page. We would like to extend our appreciation sa mga tumulong din pala sa pag-promote ng ating activity for today and by resharing our webinar invitation through social media.
yes, indeed. Thank you so much for your help. And nasa chat box po natin ang link ng ating attendance form. So we would like to ask everyone to please accomplish the attendance form. Ayan, moving on with us today are the DOST-STII team headed by the director, Sir Richard P. Burgos. We also have the division chief of the Information Resources and Analysis Division. We have Sir Alan Taule. And then we also have with us the Supervising Science Research Specialist, Ms. Linderlit M. Maglakev. We have our Information Systems Researcher 3, Mr. RJC Iscondo. We have our Science Research Specialist 1, Ms. Luisa Marie Marquez. And we have our Science Research Assistant, Mr. Elmer Generalao.
Okay, while for the ASLP, we have Mr. Brian Boy Cortez, our president, Ms. Maria Teresa Cabanse, our vice president, and other ASLP boards and officers.
And finally, we also have our technical support team, pero dalawa lang pala sila. We have Mr. Rainer Manumbali Zagada and Mr. Michael Binondo, both computer operators 3 of the Information Technology Unit. I would like also to acknowledge the presence of our SciNet members. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Yeah, and that's it for our team. Now, let us try to get to know where our audience came from. Tama ba, partner? So, with that,
Yes.
kindly chat your name and where you're from. So, maka-shoutout naman kami dyan.
Oo nga eh. Taga saan ba sila? Okay, so we have here from Coronadal City. We also have here from Laguna. Ayan, taga saan yung mga nakikita mo dyan, partner?
Madami ngayon. Kanina may nakita ko from San Jose del Monte, Bulacan, from Cagayan and other agency and institutions. Usually, iba nga from state universities and colleges. Siyempre may mga private din, di ba? So, ang ating audience ay from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Ayos.
Oo nga, ang dami nila. So, your presence is in this webinar is highly appreciated. So, don't forget to accomplish the attendance form sapagkat kailangan po natin yan as one of the criteria para mabigyan tayo ng certificate. Okay, so we hope that you will join us again in our future activities.
Okay. Again, as a reminder, nasabi na nga ng aking partner, there is an attendance sheet posted in the chat box. The attendance link will be open until 5 p.m. today. Now, in order for us to have also a smooth flow of this session, let me give you the following house rules. Number 1, this webinar will be recorded for documentation purposes and the recordings will be sent to your email address along with your e-certificates. In asking your questions, kindly use the Q&A chat box for our Zoom participants and use the comment box for our FB Live participants. You may start posting your questions while the talk is ongoing.
And the DOST-STII will also provide an e-certificate of attendance or participation to all participants who successfully registered or accomplish the attendance form and submit their evaluation form that will be posted just before the session ends. The e-certificate of participation will be sent to the email address that you have provided in the evaluation form on or before the 17th of May 2022. Let me repeat, only those who will successfully fill out the attendance form, finish the webinar, and accomplish the evaluation form that will be shown in the latter part of this webinar will be provided with e-certificate. Just a gentle reminder that in posting your e-certificate online, kindly cover or blur the signature. Finally, please please remember to be polite, to pay attention, and actively participate. We will actually be giving out prizes later, so be attentive.
Alright, ayos na ayos. May pa-prizes pa pala tayo for today, no? So,
Yes.
yung mga kasama natin dyan, no? Makinig tayo ng mabuti para manalo tayo ng mga prizes. And now, to formally welcome everyone to this event, let us hear this message from the highly respected Director of DOST-STII, Director Richard E. Burgos.
Good morning and welcome to this webinar on establishing an effective knowledge management system. Good morning also especially to the President of the Association of Special Libraries of the Philippines, Mr. Brian Boy Cortez, and also to our resource speaker today, a very special guest, Mr. Joemar Sajona, Director of the Management and Information Systems Office of the Philippine Normal University. I am so excited to join you today as I have seen the amount of interest, that you have put into this webinar. More than 4,300 people pre-registered for this event. And that goes to show just how much interest and investment you are making, not only for others, but especially for yourselves. This is the first of 4 parts, And we're going to talk next in July about copyright and intellectual property and government-funded theses and dissertations. And in September, we're going to talk about e-archiving, transform the way we preserve data. And lastly, before the year ends in November, we're going to talk about digital security, current efforts and emerging practices in securing library systems. And what is the point? What is the main point for attending all of this? I'm sure this is also the reason why there is such a high level of interest. It is because you're going to earn 2 CPD points every time you attend each of these webinars. And that's great. That shows that you are invested in your future. Just like in these elections, we all should be investing in the future of this country, the future of the Philippines. Hindi po ba? All right? So, today's webinar aims to equip you about understanding and applying fundamental concepts, practices, and tools in creating, sharing, and applying knowledge to enhance organizational productivity and growth. And this is a skill set, a knowledge base that's going to be good not only for your organizations, but also for yourselves. All right? So I hope you open your minds and be ready to receive instruction as well as inspiration from this webinar. Good luck to all of you at ipanalo na natin ito.
Ayan, thank you so much for the very warm welcome and nuggets of wisdom, Sir Richard. Ayan, so ipanalo na natin ito. Ayan, and we are experiencing technical issue with our Facebook live streaming. So we will update you po pag okay na po ang ating Facebook live stream. Ayan, we apologize for that. Okay, so before we proceed to our session proper, may I again request that you kindly inform your friends who are not yet in the, who were not able to join us in the Zoom room to kindly wait for the update of the Facebook Live. Ayan, and sa mga hindi pa po nag-accomplish ng ating attendance form, kindly accomplish. Okay.
All right. So both the Zoom and FB Live will be given certificates, no? Later naman maaayos siya ng ating technical team. But always remember na kailangan ma-accomplish natin yung ating mga attendance form and syempre finish the webinar and accomplish the evaluation form that will be posted just before our session ends. And finally, be attentive kasi alam niyo naman sa STII kapag may webinar, laging may prizes. So, sali kayo mamaya sa ating mga games. Tama ba, partner?
Yes, tamang-tama, partner. So once again, be attentive dahil magkakaroon tayo ng pakulo mamaya. And katulad ng sinabi ni partner Philip, meron tayong mga papremyo na ibibigay. At habang inaayos ng aming technical team ang issue natin sa Facebook page, Facebook Live, we will be showing kung ano yung mga pwede nating mapanalunan. Okay. Ayan. Ready na ba kayong makita? Wait, I just need to remove my background. Ayan, para makita ninyo. Okay, so we have ito muna. Okay, ballpen. Ballpen na may nakalagay na I don't know. Makikita niyo ba yan? Ayan. So, may branding. Okay. And then we also have face mask.
Oh,
Ayan.
ayos na ayos. Nakakama talaga, partner.
Yes, kailangan pa din natin ito ngayon at hindi natin alam kung hanggang kailan natin kakailanganin ang face mask. At kasunod ay ang laptop mat. So, nakagito siya.
Oh, kala ko laptop.
Mat muna, mat.
Na-excite naman ako,
Ayan,
partner.
so ganyan siya. Laptop mat. Ayan. And actually si Starbucks, kaya i-follow nyo din ang Facebook page ng Starbucks kasi nagpapamigay din sila ng mga premyo. Noong 2021, nagpamigay si Starbucks ng laptop. Ayan.
Oh.
Ayan, kala ko rin
Sasali
laptop.
na lahat.
Ayan, so laptop mat muna tayo. Baka sakali sa susunod may magbigay ng laptop. And finally, ito po, meron tayong pa-t-shirt. Ayan, wala po tayong pa-jacket, pero meron tayong pa-t-shirt. Ayan. So kung sino man po ang mananalo, may sizes namang pagpipilian. Small, medium, large, XL. Ayan, sana all daw. Okay, so pakihanda po or dapat nakahanda po ang inyong secret para mamaya na. Mamaya nyo malalaman kung ano yung dapat ninyong ihanda.
Partner, mukhang magaganda yung pamimigay natin for today. Baka naman.
Yes, oo. And ayan, sa mga hindi pa po nakakaalam, ang ating library po ay open sa public at nagpapamigay din po tayo ng complimentary books, isang set po ng libro sa mga bibisita po dito sa DOST-STII Library. So 5 libro po yon, compliments from the Secretary of the DOST, no less than Secretary Fortunato de la Peña. Ayan. So, kung gusto nyo magkaroon ng remembrance mula kay Secretary Fortunato de la Peña, bisita na po kayo sa ating library. Ayan. And ayan, ay update lang muna natin kung okay na yung ating Facebook Live. Hindi pa daw po. So, bago tayo mag-proceed sa ating speaker, ayan, siguro we will start with, ayan, or ituloy natin yung getting to know each other.
Pwede.
Tingnan natin kung
sige.
taga saan ulit yung ating mga participants.
Alain mo, no? Iba-iba yung kasama natin. Lalong dadami ito sa mga kasi free na yung webinar plus 2 CPT points plus freebies from DOST-STII. So, lagi nyo kami ipa-follow ang DOST-STII. Siyempre, isama nyo na rin kami sa ASLP.
Yes. Kasi si ASLP may darating din na webinar sa June.
Wait. Shoutout tayo, partner. Shoutout
yes.
tayo. Oh, meron dito from Sultan Kudarat State University. Takurong City.
Paano nyo sabihin ang magandang hapon sa Sultan Kudarat? Napakinggan natin, part.
Hindi, baka mag-chat yan.
Oo, mag-chat.
Mag-chat yan.
Tingnan natin kung mababasa natin.
Pinobeba. Yeah. Tapos meron pang from Apari. Ayos pala, no? Kaya nga eh. No?
Marhay na hapon?
Oh, may nag-chat dito. Former student niyo po ako. Ay, ganun. Tanda ako na.
Wow!
Hello, Rachel Ann. Oo nga, former student ko yan. Ay, ikaw ba kami makita ka niya kakilala mo, Miss Ayo?
Shout out din sa mga nakasama na namin sa Bohol. Ayan. Sila Miss. Sila Rose. Nasaan kayo? Ayan. And finally, okay na ang ating face. ASLP may darating din na webinar sa June.
Wait. Shoutout tayo, partner. Shoutout
yes.
Tayo. Oh, meron dito from Sultan Kudarat State University.
Wow.
Takurong City.
Paano nyo sabihin ang magandang hapon sa Sultan Kudarat? Napakinggan natin, part.
Hindi, baka mag-chat yan.
Oo, mag-chat.
Mag-chat yan.
Tingnan natin kung mababasa natin.
Pinobeba. Yeah. Tapos meron pang from Apari. Ayos pala.
Marhay na hapon?
Oh, may nag-chat dito. Former student niyo po ako. Ay, ganun. Tanda ako na.
Wow!
Hello, Rachel Ann. Oo nga.
Ay,
ikaw ba kami makita ka niya kakilala mo, Miss Ayo?
Shout out din sa mga nakasama na namin sa Bohol. Ayan. Sila Miss. Sila Rose. Nasaan kayo? Ayan. And finally, okay na ang ating Facebook Live.
Ayan, okay na.
So, ang link po, i-chat po ni Ma'am Linda yung link dito sa chat room. And sa mga nakafollow po sa STI Live, mag-notify po sa inyo and hopefully pala nag-notify na Ayan, check natin kung naka-notify na. Ayan, meron na nga. Salami.
Oh.
Okay.
Nakikita mo na yung sarili mo sa Facebook.
Okay, sige.
Okay,
Live
start
na
na
live na tayo sa Facebook. Okay, so go na tayo.
Okay, so
Ayan, partner.
so kung gusto niyo na mag-start tayo, no, type niyo naman dyan sa chat box yung Aja. Yan, Aja. So since we are ready, mukhang nag-type na sila, no? Since we are ready, may I call on Miss Maria Teresa M. Cabance, Vice President of the Association of Special Libraries of the Philippines, to introduce our resource speaker.
Okay, am I heard clear and sound?
Yes, Ma'am Tess.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce her today, who is going to talk to us about establishing an effective knowledge management system. He is the currently Director of Management and Information System Office of Philippine Normal University, a former head of the University Archives and Records Management Unit, former department head and program chair of Master in Library and Information Science in the graduate level under the School of Information and Knowledge Management, an Institute of Knowledge Management. He teaches also various LIS courses, Knowledge Management and Innovation Management courses, Information Technology courses, as well as professional education courses, both in undergraduate and graduate level. He also conducted numerous national and local professional lectures, trainings, presentations, and seminars related to library and information science, education, ICT, quality assurance, and curriculum development. Our guest speaker is a graduate of Master in Library and Information Science at Polytechnic University of the Philippines and currently taking his PhD on Knowledge and Innovation Management dissertation writing stage at Bangkok University, Bangkok, Thailand. He is a registered librarian, PAASCO accreditors, UNESCO MIL trainer in national level, and PNU Chief ISO Document Controller, Internet Quality Auditor, Curriculum Quality Audit Specialist, Microsoft Ambassador. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming our guest speaker, Mr. Joemar D. Sajona.
Thank you, Mama Teresa. Good afternoon po sa lahat. Okay po ba ang aking audio?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Sir Joemar.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Irene and Sir Philip, for setting the tone for this afternoon's activity. And first of all, thank you for inviting me, sa lahat po ng officers, and staff and organizer of this seminar, including sa DOST-STII and sa officers, executive board of the ASLP. Thank you po for the trust and confidence to lead this activity and be invited as your resource speaker pertaining to knowledge and knowledge management. Sanay po kasi ako ng knowledge and innovation management, but this time we'll be talking more about knowledge management. Okay, and good afternoon po sa lahat ng ating mga participants, sa Zoom room, and especially doon sa mga nanonood po sa ating FB Live, sa ating FB stream. Okay, mapapanood ko rin sarili ko mamaya, nakaka-excite lang din. Anyway, ayun, nakikita ko yung mga nag-chat, napakadami, very active ang ating mga participants dito sa Zoom room natin. So, 1K lahat yan. So, nakakatuwa naman at napakadaming nagkaroon ng interest with regards to knowledge management. Okay, so I'll be sharing my screen. Okay. Okay. So again, I'm Joemar D. Sajona of Philippine Normal University. So for this afternoon, we'll be talking more about establishing an effective knowledge management system. No, napakaganda ng topic, very dynamic. I think this is one of the biggest trend nowadays. No, although knowledge management is not that kumbaga, very famous when it comes to our country, but in other countries, no, they're doing this knowledge management way back around early 2000. Okay? For our objectives for this afternoon, nakalagay po rito na describe the knowledge management framework and methodology. So we'll be talking more about what KM is all about, no, for us to have background knowledge, no, and be grounded in terms of discussing knowledge management terminologies and topics. No, so before we develop our own system, we need to fully understand how the KM framework works, and what are the methods that we need to consider in order for us to really establish our KM initiative inside our own organization. Second is to apply KM tools and techniques in the workplace. So basically, we'll be talking more about different tools and techniques, no, in order for you to have an idea on how to come up with your own KM initiatives and eventually creating your own KM system. Lastly is to maximize the ability of the participants in developing a KM action plan for their respective organization. So hopefully, no, hopefully, after this lecture, you will learn, or you will have awareness and understanding on how to really go about with your KM action plan. And this one is very important, no, in terms of managing knowledge, inside the organization, not only in our own library, but in different levels within the organization, from top management up to the bottom. Okay, so I think we will start. No, I'm very excited to talk more about and discuss this. And if you have any questions and clarification, suggestion, you can freely type in, no, using our chat box. No, I'm encouraging you for us to really discuss what KM is all about and how we're going to apply this in our own organization. Okay. So basically, I'm starting my presentation with this visuals. No? So as we all know, if we're talking about knowledge, we're talking about data, we're talking about information. And this information is readily available, no, in different resources, physical, structural, or mental. No? If even your personality contains different kinds of information. So in order for us to make meaning, no, although we will define information as any random patterns, if we're talking about knowledge, we're talking about connecting, no, connecting the dots. So we're connecting different information to create new knowledge, or basically to make meaning. Okay? So, knowledge, no, is useless if you don't know how to integrate information. So, even if you have a lot of information in you, if you're a librarian, you know how to perform library works, you know how to write something, but if you don't know how to, maximize this information, integrate it to formulate new knowledge or contribute to the body of knowledge, therefore that is useless. No, just like in the second picture, so it doesn't matter how many resources you have. If you do not know how to use them, that is useless. Just like in the picture, no, that man cannot see, no, based on the picture, no, the other side of the wall, no. But if you can observe, no, maraming hagdanan dyan. So if that person knows how to use that stairs, no, pwede niya masolve yung kanyang problem. So that is very evident, not only in the library, but also in our organization. Sometimes, no, majority of us, especially in the government sector, I'm working in a state university. We're always asking for the budget. We're always asking for manpower. But if you will observe it, no, hindi naman contributory yung ating department doon sa ating organization eh. And that is very, very evident. So the organization wants your office to contribute to the intellectual asset of your organization. And that is very significant to them. No, in fact, no, when I was working as a newly hired faculty in the Philippine Normal University, we do not have any resources. Even kumbaga, a decent room, we do not have. But with our efforts and initiatives, no, we usually write proposal, and by God's grace, no, nagkaroon naman ng effect, no, and we got a lot of budget from the management and even outside the organization. And that is how we maximize knowledge. And right now, no, right now, uh, we booked a 25 million project from Ched, and we have our second project worth 9.6 million. And that is outside the budget of the university because we're tapping the right person, we're tapping the right knowledge to push for this initiative. Talking about is that there are lots of resources within us. We need to maximize that resources and make meaning. Now, for us to really boost our projects and initiative within the organization. Okay, so let's first talk about knowledge and why it is critical to success. No? Yan ang pinakamalaking question for us. Eh. We're talking about knowledge management. We need to have a foundational kumbaga, background about what knowledge is all about and why is it critical within the organization. Okay? So performance of your organization every day depends completely upon what every individual in your organization does that day. So we're talking about here the organizational performance of each and every one. So even if you're doing the dirty work within the organization, even if you're manning the circulation, doing the technical work, providing like for example technical assistance, all of these are contributory to the organizational performance. So meaning to say, if you will not perform, your office and organization will fail. So therefore, that is very critical. No? That is why we need to really be more conscious in what we are doing. So even if we do not like our work, we do not like at medyo tinatamad tayo, we are not in the mood to work, we need to work because that is very critical to the performance of the organization. So all of this no evolves in just one word, and that is action. We need to take action in what we are doing. So we cannot push for knowledge if there is no action. No, ganun lamang po yun. Ano? So like for example, most of us, no, especially if we have a lot of problems, no, and we have a lot of hugot, no, within our organization, no, we still need to put action. Okay? Kasi if we're always whining, walang mangyayari doon sa ating organization or walang mangyayari doon sa ating library. So again, it boils down to taking action. Okay? So we define knowledge as the human capacity. It could be potential and actual ability to take effective action in varied and uncertain situations. Maybe you'll be reacting because the way we define knowledge is far more different if we're using dictionary or we define knowledge based on different fields, no. But in the field of knowledge management, we usually define knowledge as the human capacity. Okay? So knowledge is human in nature. Okay? So it could be potential and actual ability. So what is the meaning of this? So knowledge always resides in a certain individual. No, all of us do have knowledge. So dalawa nga lang yan. It could be potential and actual ability. If we're talking about potential, these are hidden that needs to be discovered and explored. Okay? That is why sometimes we tend to discover a lot of potential to a certain person if he or she is being engaged in a certain situation. That is why it is being said that knowledge is context sensitive and situation dependent. So meaning to say, lumalabas ang talino. It depends upon the situation and context of a certain individual. That is what we call potential. Actual ability talks about the natural ability of a certain person or individual. So all of us do have our own ability. No, like ako, my ability is to talk, to conduct lecture. Some of you, maybe your ability is to sing, to dance, no, more of the creative arts. No, some of you are very good in terms of academics. No, analysis, no? And that is what we call the actual ability. Okay? And sabi dyan, to take effective action. We're talking about action. But what kind of action? It's effective in nature. Because we want to success, to be more successful in what we are doing. So therefore, in order for us to produce knowledge, it should be effective action. No, pag hindi effective, medyo ano yan, lesson learned ang tawag diyan. So again, you will repeat that situation, no? Or like for example, kung naulit-ulit yung situation na yan, therefore, you know what to do. And that is what take effective action in valid and uncertain situation. Again, we can say that knowledge is context sensitive and situation dependent. So sometimes, no, the available knowledge is not applicable to your own context. So you need to discover, you need to capture, and you need to create new knowledge based on your current situation. Okay? So that is the meaning of knowledge, no? Sa perspective po iyan ng knowledge management. So again, it's the human capacity to take effective action in varied and uncertain situation. Okay? So if we're talking about knowledge, it is composed of the following, no? Awareness, understanding, meaning, insights, creativity, ideas, intuition, judgment, and anticipating the outcome of your action, or what we call the foresight. If you're in the management level, it's very important that you have this foresight. No? Kaya si DAP niyan nagbibigay lagi ng training about foresight scenario. No? We enrolled, no, sa online course ng foresight scenario for us to have a good knowledge in what we are doing. And we need to anticipate the risk. So therefore, if you anticipate the risk, you can react immediately if something happens doon sa event, sa activity, or other endeavor. Okay? So again, no, if you have awareness, that is considered to be knowledge. If you fully understand, that is also knowledge. If you put meaning to something, that is sometimes knowledge. Okay? And creativity, that talks about also knowledge. Okay? So I want to illustrate here the learning environment. In terms of knowledge management, learning is very important. So if you have knowledge and you take effective action, so therefore you are learning. So in this framework by Bennett, no, we're talking about here the high performance. So actually, pabaliktad po iyan. No? We're talking about the high performance. And high performance is somewhat related to experience. So if a certain person do have experienced something, therefore, the next time na ma-encounter niya yung same scenario, same context, malaki percentage na high performance yan. Sabi nga, di ba, repetition, no, is math. So therefore, if we always repeat what we're doing, that will illustrate to high performance. Pero paano ba mapupunta sa high performance if we're talking about experience? So experience, no, leads us to learning. So learning could be by means of social interaction or by means of thinking. So therefore, an individual can acquire knowledge by interacting to our society, by talking to someone, by attending seminars, no? So therefore, that is what we call social interaction. And also, we can learn by thinking, no? So masakit po ba ang ulo nyo? Sino rito yung sakit niya yung ulo? No? Positive yan, no? Hindi positive sa COVID, ano? Positive because sometimes when we try to think of something, anong nangyayari sa atin sumasakit yung ating ulo? So, minamaximize natin yung brain natin. Ibig sabihin, gumagana siya. So, sometimes we learn by thinking. And that learning can be translated into knowledge. So, meaning to say, we have an idea, no? Or we can, kumbaga, take effective action based on our learnings. And our knowledge is being triggered by these three. Create ideas, make decisions, and solve problems. Okay? So sometimes if we will make decisions, we usually tend to decide on something that is uh, uh, siguro creative in a way, no? Yung mga solutions na na-encounter natin is very creative, unconventional, and also we make decision by solving problems. Based on my experience as administrator, no, for 2 years na po this pandemic, no, napakadaming knowledge akong na-acquire, no, because professionally I'm a librarian by profession. Tapos nag-shift ako into teaching. Maybe some of you, no, kilala ako, nakikita na ako sa PNU, no. Nag-shift ako into teaching and that is something new to me. Okay? Because hindi naman madaling maging teacher, because you are required to read a lot, you are required to do research, you are required to speak, so on and so forth. And that produce knowledge. No? Kasi hindi naman natin usually ginagawa yan. No? And then when I was offered to handle a position, an admin position, no, medyo mataas na position as head of the University Archives and Records Management Unit, no, panibagong learning na naman because I need to study further more about records management. No? And as a librarian, that is not my strength. Okay? So, we need to make decisions. No? In everything that we do, we need to make decisions. Especially if that is work related. And as director of the Management and Information Systems Office, and not an IT major, but rather a library science major, it's very hard for me to really adapt myself, no, doon sa situation. Not because mahirap yung work, but because lacking ako ron sa knowledge when it comes to technology. Although I do have some ideas and information about uh, technology. But still, being the director is something different rather than a ordinary or usual staff in the office. So we're solving a lot of problems. So, and that is part of learning that can produce knowledge eventually. Okay? And right now, kumbaga nakapag-adjust na po tayo with this pandemic, no? Hindi ko nga alam kung tama ba ang timing o hindi, kasi talagang maraming problemang nag-arise. And because of that, we need to make sometimes hard decisions and we need to take action. And that could be triggered by your morale and you being the responsible person, no? Is empowered to do that decision. So you need to take action. Whether or not that is a bad news or a good news, you need to make a decision and you need to take action. Okay? And that will translate to high performance. And eventually, no, uulit lang po yan, yung high performance mo would be a learning experience. So that learning experience will again translate into knowledge. That is how we make integration and how we make a relationship between knowledge and learning. Okay, kaya nga sabi, di ba, knowledge is the capacity to take effective action and learning is the creation of knowledge. So hindi po sa lahat ng panahon we always imitate someone. No? Sometimes there is a need for us to take action and to create knowledge based on our experiences. Okay? Knowledge pa lang po ang pinag-uusapan natin, wala pang knowledge management. Okay? So management, so doing what is needed. No? If we're going to define what management is all about, so management is more about doing what is needed, no, to get the most out of some resources. Okay? So, yun ang kailangan na sa manager. No? Pagkasyahin mo kung ano yung meron. You maximize everything. You need to be more resourceful. If there is a need for you to collaborate with someone, do that. If there is a need to think, no, ikaw lang mag-isang mag-iisip, you do that. If there is a need to be a sacrificial lamb, do that. Because that is part of the management. Okay? So, we're talking about here resources, like for example assets, supply chain, no, customer relationship, human resources, no. And of course yung keyword dyan, yung big words pala dyan is to get the most, no. Hindi po kasama yung out na napasama lang, no? Get the most, no. If we're talking about getting the most, no, it means that or it implies knowledge management. Acting as to maximize the return from knowledge resources. No, bakit po tayo na-hire sa position natin? Bakit po kayo na-hire as a librarian? Because the organization wants to get the most out of your potential and natural ability. And that is what we call knowledge resources. So wala pong aksidente na punta sa location niya or napunta sa organization niya. You are being assigned as the officer of this organization, of this ASLP, of DOST, or kung sino mang organization, because that organization wants to get the most out of you. Okay? Ibig sabihin, we're talking about your own knowledge. No? Kaya naman tayo nag-hire. It is because you believe in that person that he or she can contribute to the direction or to the vision, mission of the organization. Kaya naman kayo na-hire, it's not because of palakasan or you have someone, but because naniniwala sila sa iyo that you can do it, that you can manage office, that you can pull out certain activities that is very impossible. And that is what we call knowledge management. So acting as to maximize the return from knowledge resources. Because you alone is considered to be part of knowledge management. You're being called as knowledge resources. No? Maraming pinupull out sa brain mo. Maybe because that is your purpose in that organization, or maybe because different individuals saw your potential. Nakita nila yung knowledge mo because you explicitly display your knowledge resources. No? Kaya nga, it implies cost-benefit analysis. No? Sometimes, pag umuupo po kami sa hiring board, part ako ng hiring board ng university, minsan tinitingnan namin, mag-i-invest tayo dyan. Meron bang return of investment? Diba? As you can observe in my bio note, parang ang tagal ko na po sa PNU pero wala pa po akong 10 years sa PNU. And yet, marami na po tayong mga positions na in-apply, na kumbaga nakuha, we're being asked to apply for it positively, natanggap naman tayo, and we pull out different kumbaga successes, in managing different office, different levels, different works, yung po, lahat po yun ay dugot pawis. Tayo po ay nag-aral ng iba-ibang klase, That is why I'm kumbaga encouraging each and everyone, especially librarians, to go outside the box. Hindi na yan ang trabaho natin. Ang trabaho po natin ibang level na. You need to maximize your potential. We need to manage your knowledge. So in order for us to do that, we need care. Okay? Because sabi nga rito, sa picture, I don't know and I know. How will you bridge the gap? Hindi mo nga alam. Papayag ka bang hindi mo na lang alamin? So therefore, if you don't know something, you must do something to know it. Okay, you need to bridge the gap. Whatever it takes, you need to know it. Because if not, mabibigla ka na lang, you are irrelevant anymore, you are redundant, ibig sabihin yung ginagawa mo, meron ng gumagawang iba, so you are not that important in the organization. And that is okay, so we need to grow within the profession by acquiring different types and kinds of knowledge. So we need to do gap analysis. So how can a certain individual do gap analysis, Pero ang tawag diyan ay strategic gap analysis, according to Zach. So we need to further study or analyze the present and the future, based on knowledge and based on strategy. So, dito muna tayo sa vertical. Doon muna tayo sa company or sa organization, in terms of knowledge. So, present times, what your company knows. Siyempre, kung ano yung deliverables ang company mo, yun ang gagawin mo, like DOST-STII, So, ang kanilang company is in charge of different developing and creating different information resources. At yun ang alam ng kanilang company. Pero what about in the future? 'Di ba? You need to practice innovation. You need to grow as an organization. So kukunin mo ng you will be very selective, no? You will target specific knowledge that your company must possess. That is what that is the future. What your company must know, no? What your hindi na yung what your company knows. Tapos na tayo that is our current. Pero in the future, what your company must know. So if you're an individual, especially if you're a librarian, it is given that we know how to catalog books, we know how to conduct orientation, we know how to provide circulation services, we know how to do collection development, no? And that is very basic. If you're going to apply for a librarian position, and I'm the one who interview you, I'm asking, I want you to display your other ability, your different levels of knowledge. So ano pa yung kailangan mo pang ano pa yung specific mong ginagawa na ikaw lang yung nakakagawa, no? And that is uniqueness. So therefore, if we're talking about knowledge, no, kailangan nag-grow po ito. How will it grow? No? How your knowledge will grow, no, in the near future? You need to look for that information. So you need to take effective action with that information. Like for example, in what we are doing, you are attending this seminar on establishing knowledge management system, no? So after this seminar, ano na po mangyayari? Maybe majority of you will, okay, ngayon hype na hype ako, but tomorrow I will forget everything, hindi ko na siya i-apply. So therefore, hindi rin nasagot yung gap. Bakit? Kasi hindi po tayo nag-take ng effective action. So alam mo na nga, so therefore, pagbalik mo sa library mo, you need to apply what you've learned in this seminar in order for you to take, kumbaga, to gain more knowledge in what you are doing. No, at first, you will feel at loss, but eventually, you will, be more relaxed, and then you will absorb everything, no? Kasi nga naman, information explosion, no? Or overload, bigla-bigla, no? But eventually, no? You will get the hang of it. So, therefore, that is your future. If we're talking about strategy on the other side, no? The current situation is what your company can do. No, it's your ability. No, you strategize. You do different ways of achieving the vision and mission of the organization. Pero ano yung nakalagay sa future? So what your company must do. No? So this one is about a bit more different compared to knowledge. So therefore, we need to really be more creative in terms of strategizing. Dito po nagkakatalo lahat eh. No? Especially if you're working in the government. But yung library mo, ang ganda-ganda yung library ko, hindi parang kulang, no? Pero same lang naman tayo ng budget, pero mas maganda. It is because of the strategy. Bakit kayo, wala naman kayong like for example, kaunti lang kayong librarian, pero kami madami, pero ba't yung library namin hanggang ganito lang? Diba? It's more about this strategy. So if you know how to really be more creative in terms of strategizing, therefore even if you're a one-man librarian, you can really, kumbaga, manage the library very well. Okay? So yun lang ang ibig sabihin po noon. So what your company must do. No? Bukod sa can do, sa current, ano pa yung mga kailangan mong gagawin? And if we're talking about the horizontal part, no, yung strategic knowledge link at saka knowledge strategy link, no, knowledge and strategy is always connected. So if you do not have enough knowledge, therefore, magiging limited din ang strategy. That is why it is important that we sustain yung harnessing ng knowledge of each individual within the organization for them to really boost or initiate different kinds and types of strategy. So, yun lang ang ibig sabihin nun. Yung link between knowledge and strategy. And that is what we call knowledge management. So knowledge management is not really more on technology. Before we have this perception na when we are enrolling dun sa knowledge management na program sa Bangkok University, we're always thinking about knowledge management is it's more about technology. But when we study knowledge management, it's far more different. It's more about how to harness your intellectual asset. Okay? Hindi lang physical, no? It's intellectual asset. So therefore, nasabi namin, okay, so KM is very important in an organization. If they have very strong knowledge management initiatives, therefore, magsusurvive ang isang organization. And they will perform very well. And that is 100% sure. Okay? So let's define what knowledge management is all about. So what is KM? Sorry po, medyo mahaba kasi yung knowledge management. So I'll be using KM. So pag sinabing KM, no, it's knowledge management. Okay? So knowledge management may simply be defined as doing what is needed to get the most out of knowledge resources. So we're talking about here the focal point of knowledge management, which is knowledge resources. We need to extract that knowledge in that specific resources. Be it, no, be it doon sa human resources natin or be it doon sa structural resources natin. Okay? So the important thing about KM is doing what is needed to get the most out of that knowledge resources. Sa kung papaanong parang we need to pull that knowledge that resides in that resources. Be it in the level of tacit knowledge, be it in the level of explicit knowledge, be it in the level of implicit knowledge. I'm talking about levels of knowledge. No? Explicit knowledge, nakikita, nababasa, nahahawakan. No, it could be like for example, my PowerPoint presentation is an example of explicit knowledge. When you read, you learn. Diba? Nakikita mo, nababasa mo. That is considered to be explicit. If we're talking about tacit knowledge, no, ito yung undefined. It's very hard to explain. No, nagre-reside yan sa subconscious mind ng isang individual. Implicit knowledge, you can articulate it by means of your experience. Meaning to say, you are not aware that you have that kind of knowledge, but when a certain person encounters a specific situation, lumalabas yung kanyang knowledge. And that is implicit knowledge. Okay? If you find it really hard to communicate certain information, therefore that is considered to be tacit. Diba? Bakit ikaw nagagawa mong ganito? Very lively. Hindi ko nga alam, hindi ko ma-explain eh. No? Pero ginagawa mo. That is implicit. It is because of your experience. Kaya nga experience is the best teacher. Diba? So, yun yung tinatawag na mga levels of knowledge. Okay? So, KM focuses on organizing and making available important knowledge wherever and whenever is needed. We're talking about here organizing and making available important knowledge. In the field of librarianship, what do you think is the most important knowledge? Before, di ba? Before, when I was a student, medyo matagal na panahon na po iyon, no? If you know how to catalog, nako, you're an asset, no? Kasi very technical ang trabaho mo. Kaya nga technical librarian. Before, parang naipapansin ko, no, based on my observation, that is the most important knowledge Kaya sabi ko nung estudyante ko, ima-master ko ang pagkakatalog kasi pwede ka palang bayaran diyan per piece. So ibig sabihin meron ka pang other income stream, no? Pero ngayon, if we're talking about librarianship, the most important available knowledge that a librarian must possess is the foresight, no? Ability to anticipate the future, ability to be more strategic in nature, ability to be more creative and innovative. These are the competencies, very important competencies that a librarian must possess. If you do not have this knowledge, maybe it's kumbaga a sign for you to exert more effort, no, to acquire new knowledge, because we don't know baka after 5 years, 10 years, irrelevant na yung alam mo, because yung ginagawa natin usually sa library can be done by a system. Hindi na kailangan ng librarian. For us to stay relevant, we need to acquire new kinds of knowledge, available knowledge. Lahat po yan ay nandiyan na. Kumbaga, kailangan mo na lang aralin. No? In PNU, no, we're talking about data architecture, we're talking about enterprise architecture, no, na-share ko na to one time sa isang school, no. We're talking about data analytics, we're talking about information analysis, no, we're talking about utagogy, yung mga ganong klase. That is something new na siguro yung mga libraries hindi pa narinig, pero andyan na siya. And we need to acquire those competencies and knowledge for us to survive with this new normal. No, the reality is that we are done about yung sa transitioning in this pandemic. Kailangan po naka-transition na po tayo. No? That is why uh, sometimes if we do research, no, parang paulit-ulit lang yung normal, pandemic, offering reference sources. If you will inject knowledge management in that research, type of research, alam mo, napakaganda po na magiging output natin. No, it's very creative and very interactive and applicable, no, irregardless kung anong era nandoon tayo. No? Because KM is focusing more on organizing and making available important knowledge. So wala siyang limitation. No? Sabi niya, wherever and whenever it is needed. If your boss, no, or your superior asks you to create a proposal, can you create? No? Can you develop a certain proposal? Kanina, no, sa seminar namin sa NAP, no, pinaka-culminating namin is to create an action plan for 20 minutes. Tapos isasabit namin yun sa NAP. Okay, so makakagawa ka ba ng 20 minutes? Ang daming mga elements. So, if you have the skills, you can do that immediately. But what if you didn't have that kind of skill or ability? So, therefore, questionable yung competency. Okay? KM is also related to the concept of intellectual capital. Okay, ito magandang topic. If we're talking about intellectual capital, no, parang sa business. Pag magkatayo po tayo ng business, you need to have a capital. May funding ka dapat. If you do not have the right funds, no, hindi magiging successful ang business. Just like in our profession or being an individual, no, professional individual, we need to have a capital. And our capital is our intellect. Okay? So, if you know how to engage with your intellect, therefore, you have your capital. You will be, like for example, invited to seminars, you'll be asked to do some collaboration, you will be asked by someone to contribute with this one, you'll be assigned to do this, even if you are not that, kumbaga, capable, but may intellect ka kasi, so ilalagay ka dyan. So, therefore, there are lots of opportunities. No? Why is that some libraries, no, especially yung mga special, galing din ako sa special library before, no. I worked sa Armed Forces of the Philippines, no, sa MQC as a historical librarian. no? Doon, no? Nag-work ako sa museum, no? So, kumbaga, sa special library, it's specialized. So, mas mataas ang level ng intellect doon. Kasi, kumbaga, specific yung ginagawa mo. Unlike sa academic school na routinary, no, na kumbaga, kailangan mo na lang i-sustain, you need to be more creative in order for you to offer new services. But in the special library, which is highly specialized yung approach, no, we need to have a lot of knowledge. No? If you're working, like for example, ako, I'm working before sa military historical library, so I need to invest. No? Makikipag-collaborate ako sa mga military librarians, so pupunta ako sa PMA, pupunta ako sa veterans, no? I'll be asking for resources, no? Yung mga ganun, tie-up. So, kumbaga, ini-engage mo rin yung sarili mo to know more something doon sa sineserve mong organization, especially sa special libraries. Okay? And that is intellectual capital. So, if makita na wala kang intellect or hindi naman walang intellect, meron naman talaga, sometimes potential nga, hindi lang explicitly na nakikita. No? So, therefore, magkakaroon ng doubt sa mga projects natin, no? Or sa development ng ating libraries. But pinapakita mo that you are engaging, you are, kumbaga, initiating a lot of projects, no? You know your projects very well, so therefore, magpapagbibigyan. And that is the key to, sabi nga natin, high performance. Kaya critical to success. So essence of knowledge management, if we're talking about intellectual capital, we're talking about history, no? Huwag po kayo malito, no? Implicit and explicit, no? Implicit based on experience, no? Sabi nga rito, you have the human capital, which is the person or the individual itself. You have the social capital, and you have the corporate capital. So the human capital, we're talking about the individual. That individual do have expertise, experience, capability, capacity, creativity, and adaptability. Dito po tayo nagkakatalo, no? That is why some librarians are being paid, no, with this type of salary, no? Bakit malaki ang offer sa kanya? Parehas lang naman kami. Ba't ako ganito lang? It is because of the expertise, the experience, the capability of that individual. Thus, there is no need for us to question, no, the value of a certain person. Because the value of that person depends more on what he or she can do within the organization. And that is human capital. Okay, why are you being appointed as the manager of this organization, of this department, of this office? Hindi ka naman naka-align diyan. You are not a librarian, no? Hindi naman ako IT major, but ako napunta sa MIS? It is because of your expertise. It is because of your experience. It is because of your creativity. Yung mga ganong klase. And that brings down to the ability of a certain individual. So human capital. So parang sa basketball, kumukuha tayo ng mga tao sa isang team that do have different type of expertise, experience, no? Para mag-champion ng isang basketball team, kailangan meron siyang first five, meron siyang second five. O, iba-iba ang galing nun, no? So, yung isang team ngayon, ang tawag naman doon is social capital. So, that team, no, evolves, no? Since they do have a different expertise and experience, nag-create sila ng bagong knowledge, which can be translated into networks, relationships, interactions, language, and patterns. Okay? So sometimes, like for example, sa library organization, why is that a certain library organization or department is very successful? It is because they do have varied human capital that they can really work well as a team, and that they can produce new knowledge out of the existing one. And that is what we call social capital. And that team is contributory to the organization, or what we call the corporate capital. Pagdating sa corporate capital, it becomes explicit. Why? No? Knowledge is being embedded in the different levels within the corporation or the organization. Naka-embed yan sa mga procedures, processes, databases, no? Intellectual property, no? If the, like for example, if the librarians produces manuals, no? Yan ang may nire-require ng organization, di ba? Ng immediate head nyo. You are required to do strategic planning. So therefore, that is explicit in nature. And that is a product of the organizational knowledge. Okay? Kaya sinasabing explicit. Human capital, it's more about implicit or tacit, no? Because it resides within the individual, no? Kaya minsan pag may umalis na librarian, napakagaling, no? Haltang-halata mo na kumbaga magaling siya at nawalan talaga yung library, no? Nagkaroon ng effect or na-influence yung kanilang performance because of that individual. So, ibig sabihin, tacit talaga yun or pwedeng implicit. No? Meaning to say, siya yung nagbibigay ng flavor doon sa team mismo na pag nawala siya, you will felt it. Diba? Mararamdaman mo yan. Naramdaman mo yan nung parang yung girlfriend mo o yung girlfriend mo nawala sa'yo, di ba? Anong nangyari? Na-depress, nalungkot, nawalan ng gana. Kasi team kayo eh. Di ba? So, ganun din yon sa kumbaga, if we're talking about intellectual capital. And that intellectual capital, human, social, and corporate capital comprises the enterprise knowledge. Okay? Doon po nag-evolve ang knowledge. At doon nabubuo ang knowledge management. That is why it is important to really harness knowledge within the individual, within the team, and within the organization to produce different types and levels of success. Okay? In order for us to succeed, kailangang malakas ang ating intellectual capital. Okay? So, why KM is important? Bakit nga naman, sir? Pag mga librarians po, we do a lot of things. I'm a one-man librarian, and yet you're asking me to create action plan for knowledge management. How can I do that? I'm serving the clients, I'm doing this, I'm attending meetings, di ba? So on and so forth. So why KM is important? KM is important because of knowledge. Sabi natin again, defined as the capacity to take effective action. And in order for us to make the right decision, we need knowledge. That is why kanina I'm asking Philip about the context of the seminar. Bakit ba naisip na mag-conduct ng seminar about KM? So he shared that the central theme of this year is focusing more on innovation. Totoo nga naman that in order for us to innovate something, we need to make right decision. And in order for us to make right decision, we need to have knowledge. You cannot act if you didn't have kumbaga knowledge. No? Hindi ka pwedeng mag-course doon sa effective action nang wala kang decision. So left and right lang yan. Pupunta ka ba sa kaliwa, pupunta ka ba sa kanan. And it is being accelerated by learning. So meaning to say, if you learn something, you produce knowledge, there is this big possibility that you will arrive in the right decision and right actions. Diba? For example, no, you are being kumbaga hired as a librarian and you know what to do. No? You're a newly grad but you know what to do. So you will kumbaga create right decisions. And that will translate into effective action. So therefore, you will be successful. Okay? And that results to, sabi nga dyan, no, increase organizational collaboration. You will be very active within the organization. Yes, you're a librarian and you're very active, no, participating in the organization. Mayroong mga librarians kasi na left out eh. Baka kasi hindi enough yung kanilang knowledge. Or sometimes, we need to engage, no, in order for us to acquire new knowledge. No? Sabi diyan, reduce time to market, reduce costs. No? You're very efficient, increase efficiency, increase productivity, reduce mistakes, no? Increase profitability, tumataas ang value, and long-term adaptation and sustainability. So these are the results that is being, kumbaga, can be gained through your own knowledge, no? Which resulted to right decision and effective action. No? Kung samahan mo ng best practices, tsaka lesson learned, eh, tapos na ang laban. No? Imagine nyo, no? Like for example, no? Sabi ko nga, nakapag-close ako ng isang malaking project. And that is my first project in my entire stay in. That is my first project. No, it's a CHED Smart Campus project. And I am the first person na nakabook ng malaking project. No? Pinakamalaki yun. Kaya na pala, no? Kasi meron ng mas malaki sa akin. And I am guided in terms of creating it or proposing the project. You know, ang karabing elbows ko is the president. No? One-on-one kami. Tinuturuan niya ako kasi I don't know how to make a proposal na fitted for the format of CHED. No? So, pinagkatiwalaan lang ako, binigyan ako ng right knowledge, no? Ginaid ako, ginawa ko, we make better decision, and that translates to a good performance. No? Pinagmamayabang ko kasi na-max namin yung budget ng CHED. And right now, we're entering into a second project. No? Last year lang yun. Right now, this year, we're crafting the second proposal for the Smart Campus Project second batch. No? That cost around halos 10 million. Ano? So, yun. So, that is the importance of KM. Since I do have an idea about KM, so trigger ko lang, no, para makuha ko yung right knowledge for me to have a right decision and take effective action. And that is how KM works. So, relationship of KM in the different levels, no? Yung IT, yung information technology and information management, no? Sabi ko kanina, if we're talking about KM, we have this tendency to overthink, no? That KM is somewhat more on IT rather than, other things. Pero if we're talking about, relationship of infrastructure, IT, and information management, no? Nasa pinakaitaas na ang knowledge management. So for us to establish our own KM, we need enablers. And in terms of infrastructure, we need to have incentives, education, and training. Ano pong napansin nyo? These are all related to intellectual capital. No? We need to invest more about knowledge. Kaya sometimes your organization asks you to attend this seminar, not because that is your benefits, but because they want you to acquire new knowledge and put it into the organization. Yun ang kanilang infrastructure. No? Yun ang kanilang way of saying that we need new knowledge and it's only you who can trigger, no, this knowledge. No? Kung librarian ka, syempre a-attend ka ba ng ibang training? Syempre dapat may kinalaman sa library management, may kinalaman sa librarianship. So therefore, that is the intellectual capital. Sumusugal ang organization doon sa individual. And in order for that knowledge to be accessed or sometimes managed, we need to have the information technology. That is why if we're talking about this, we're talking about software, hardware, we're talking about connectivity, we're talking about capability and capacity. No? Kaya sinasabing technology innovation. Sometimes, no, especially sa innovation, when I'm teaching knowledge and innovation management, no, kapag ang subject namin ay topic ay innovation na, we're talking about yung technology push and market push. No? So, sino ba ang nagpo-push ng innovation? Is it technology or is it the market? Or it's both. No? It's a combination. So, innovation can be driven by both technology and market. So in terms of the essence of the information technology, the major enabler of this is the capacity and capability of a certain person. That is why if we're going to implement something new within the organization, we need to have capable person to do that. We need to capacitate all our staff in performing this kind of activity for us to produce knowledge and for us to have an intellectual capital that resides within and every staff in the library. Connectivity, we need to connect, no? Sometimes sa connectivity hindi lang naman social media, no? It's more about collaboration. No, we need to connect with someone. So paano ka magko-connect? You're using technology, 'di ba? Communication technology. No? If you have physical asset, how can you, like for example, access a certain data? You need the software, you need the hardware. So that is the essence of information technology. If we're talking about information management, we're talking about how are we going to deal with the information itself that resides in the infrastructure and information technology. So we need to look for someone who is knowledgeable or succeed in that certain activity. So pag nahanap na po natin yan, therefore, ikokopya lang po natin. Like for example, nagpatayo ng ganito, nagkaroon ng system na ganito. Oh, how did you do that kind of system in the library? Paano nyo ba ginagawa? You're very good in doing this. So, we do benchmarking. Diba? So, we always look at the lesson learned by different individuals. No? Kasi yun ang ating mga sign or signal for us to be more cautious in terms of kumbaga, engaging with that information. For social capital, you build relationship. Okay, you can get information by building relationship, by knowing something. Diba? You ask someone, oh, please guide me. How can we do this? You create collaboration within the team. And for the corporate capital, this can be translated into data, information, and mapping, which is the vital commodity nowadays. Data is the vital commodity. If you have data, you're very powerful. Okay? And of course, pagdating sa essence ng knowledge management, again, pupunta lang yan sa human capital, the social capital, and the corporate capital or the organization. Okay? So, yun po yung relationship. So, KM is not merely more about technology. Technology is just a vehicle, to drive KM. But that is not the focal point of the KM. The focal point of the KM is the knowledge enterprise, or what we call the human capital, the social capital, and corporate capital. Okay. So if we're talking about KM, we're talking about the different processes within the KM. Okay? So, ayun. Sir Philip, meron ba tayong health break or magpo-proceed ako?
Sir, pwede po kayong magpa-health break
Okay,
ng 5
sige.
minutes. Yep.
Okay, so let's take the health break ng 5 minutes, no? Para at least ma-refresh, makapag-CR break yung ating participants. Sige po, you can take
Yes.
your health break muna.
Okay. Thank you, Sir Joemar. Yan. So, pwede po tayong mag-snacks. Mag-restroom. Yan. Ipapakita ko lang, papakita ko lang yung yung libro. Ayan. So, ganito po yung libro na pinapamigay namin. Ay, wait. Tatanggalin ko yung aking virtual background. Yan, ito po siya. So, nakalagay doon. Sorry. Ayan, nakikita niyo ba? Sabi doon, with compliments from the secretary himself. At si Secretary Fortunato T. de la Peña, kung hindi pa po alam ng lahat, ay mag-re-retire na sa June. Tama, Philip, no? Dun
Oo,
siya.
tama. Mag-retire na. Pwede bang i-mine na lang yan yung mga pinipresent mong prices? Kasi ang daming participants eh. 1,037.
Kaya nga eh,
Tapos
kaya
may,
lang.
nag-check ako ng
Oh.
Facebook, meron ba tayong almost 700 viewers? Kaya yun.
Mm.
Pwede ba
Oo
mag-mine
nga.
na lang ako dyan?
Kaya lang ano eh, kailangan nandito sa library eh. Kasi sa totoo lang, wala kang budget na pagpapadala. Okay.
Dapat siniim mo lang narinig
Ayan.
ata nila.
So, dahil wala
Joke lang.
kaming budget para ipadala ito. Kaya ganun. And actually, ayan, yung mga before po, actually, nagpamigay kami, yung mga taga Laguna, ganun, pinapag-grab nila. So, sila magbabayad ng courier. Kaya lang, ngayon kasi nag-iba tayo ng criteria. And ang criteria natin is, kailangan pumunta kayo dito sa ating library. Okay? Ayan, time check. Ay, sorry.
Wala ka pa,
Malapit ko
masyado
pala.
na excited.
Okay.
Ayan, breakfast na line. Ayun na yung willing to pay shipping fee po.
Oo nga, willing to pay. Kaya lang kasi, kailangan nyo kasing pumunta dito eh. Ayan, Sir Kevin, pasyal ka na dito.
Yung library
On-
sa DOST main office,
STII.
no? STII. Dun sa may Bikutan,
Oo.
Taguig.
Oo.
Kayang-kaya ko ikaw ay
Nandito kami.
taga Leyte.
Leyte. Baka mas mahal po yung pamasahe ng papunta sa Leyte kaysa yung libro.
Ay, ito
Ayan, yung
merong
mga
Manila.
nasa Manila lang.
Kaya yung pwede yan. Kung ganito lagi yung participants natin active, no? Pwede tayo mag-sideline ng live selling dito.
Ay.
Joke lang.
Oo, pwede din. Ayan, Mark Von, ayan, hindi mo pwedeng ipakuha, kaya kailangan ikaw nandito. Yes, Monday to Friday po kami, 8 to 5 po, 8 a.m., 5 p.m. Anytime po, pwede po kayong pumunta, basta within the working hours.
Ay, ito pala, shoutout natin yung mga BLIS students who are attending from Cagayan State University, Carig Campus, and University of the East Manila. Ayos.
Ayos. Ayan, thank you so much for your interest. At least habang nag-aaral pa kayo, you are already joining and you are very interested to expand your knowledge sa different fields, hindi lang actually ng librarianship, pero sa lahat, sapagkat being in the library, we will encounter clients from different professions, no? Hindi lang librarian din.
Ay, ibang tawag dito, partner, hindi lang pala within the Philippines ang ating mga participants. Meron ako nakita from Doha, Qatar.
Yes. Oo,
naman.
meron nga.
Meron din sa
Ayan,
Saudi, nasa Saudi po ako. Ayos. Baka naman. PM na lang ng address.
Nasa Saudi pala si Mark Bon. Naku, paano yan? Ayan, so ito po yung title ng libro.
Ay, wait lang. Shoutout daw. Pa-shoutout po from PUP Maragondon. Hi, Ma'am Luisa. Luisa, tama, no? Ayan. Ma'am Luis.
Okay. Ayan, so I think we're done with the 5 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you po. Pwede ba rin ako
Okay.
mag-mine dyan?
Ayan.
Pasyal kayo dito, Sir Joemar.
Sige, one time, no? Pag pumwede, Okay, sige. Thank you, Ma'am Irene. Lively na binabasa ko yung mga questions sa Q&A, pero sige, later yan natin, i-address na. Okay, so now we will continue, no? If we're talking about KM, we need to be more familiar in terms of the processes inside knowledge management. So ano lang naman po yan? There are 4, no? Discovery, capturing, sharing, and application. Okay. Tayo muna mga basic, no, bago tayo humirap, no? So if we're talking about knowledge discovery, we're talking about development of new tacit or explicit knowledge from data and information or from the synthesis of prior knowledge. So, medyo malalim, ano? Sabi rito, development of new tacit or explicit knowledge. So, meaning to say, if we're talking more about knowledge discovery, there is a need for us to develop, new tacit and explicit knowledge which resides doon sa data and information. So parang nagre-research lang yan sa library. Like for example, if you're looking for a certain book, you'll be using the online public access catalog. So you will have knowledge that, we have that kind of collection kasi gumamit ka ng system. So that is parang analogy ng knowledge discovery. Or sometimes, sabi rito, from the synthesis of prior knowledge. So meaning to say, explicitly written. No? Pwede magkaroon ng knowledge discovery. Or sometimes, it is being communicated to us by a certain individual. No? Tacit to tacit knowledge. No? Pero pag binasa sa libro, katulad ng binibigay ng DOST-STII, that is explicit in nature. Nagbasa ako ng libro and there is learning, natutuwa ako, so therefore, I develop a new set of knowledge and I discover a new set of knowledge, and that is knowledge discovery. Okay? So knowledge capturing talks about the process of retrieving either explicit or tacit knowledge that resides within people, artifacts, or organizational entities. No? Parang nakita mo na and you capture that knowledge, be it explicit or tacit again. No? That resides, within people, kung mga seminar yan, so tacit to tacit, artifacts, or organizational entities. That is, kumbaga, what we call yung organizational culture. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, when we are being hired, di ba, medyo nag-a-adjust ka pa sa organization, tapos pag okay na, meaning to say, you already adapted with the culture, nagkakaroon ka na ng bagong knowledge. Just like in PN, we have this different culture, kanya-kanya sa amin, kailangan marunong ka ng lumangoy. So, meaning to say, that will help you to be more independent, that will help you to be more, kumbaga, to have more energy to really boost or initiate different kinds and types of activities, and that is an example of knowledge capturing. Later, expound pa po natin. Knowledge sharing is the process through which explicit or tacit knowledge is communicated to other individuals. So this talks about certain individual transferring knowledge from one person to another. So parang culture of sharing. So remember, the more we share the knowledge, the more it is being enhanced, or created. So kung tinatago nyo lang sa sarili nyo, therefore that knowledge will not grow. You need to share that knowledge. Kaya sharing is caring. Kaya nga nagbibigay tayo ng mga seminars. Usually we invited to have this talk for a certain school. Ngayon meron nagre-request ng mga schools to talk more about librarianship. So, nag-share tayo ng ating mga experiences. We're sharing our own knowledge. So, para ma-enhance or ma-recreate. Okay? And then, knowledge application, the process through which explicit or tacit knowledge is utilized to guide decisions and action. So, in order for us to make a good decision, we need to have knowledge, sabi natin kanina. So, knowledge application will help us to produce new knowledge by taking effective action. So, therefore, it's the application of what knowledge, kumbaga, on what knowledge is talking more about. It resides on data, it could be a decision, or it could be an action. Kaya nauso nga yung mga data models, data visualization. Alam niyo ba sa library, hindi na ngayon yung mga statistical, yung mga graph. It's more about data visualization. If you know how to do this, therefore you are an asset in the organization. If you know how to read and analyze data, therefore that is an asset, intellectual asset. Ina-apply doon ang knowledge application. Okay? So let us further discuss this knowledge discovery, capturing, sharing, and application by using different knowledge management models and framework. Ito medyo ano lang po, we will try to simplify it. No? Medyo malalim lang ang ating discussion. So the very famous knowledge management model is the model of Nonaka. No? Takeuchi, dalawa sila dyan. No? So si Nonaka is, kumbaga, hindi naman siya kinoconsider na father ng KM but one of the well-known, no, KM practitioner. And Nonaka, no, introduced the SESI model. No? SESI, no, S, A, C, and I. So if we're talking about the SESI model, no, meron siyang 4 quadrants, which is tacit knowledge, no, tacit to tacit, no, and then yung second, yung, externalization, which is the tacit knowledge to explicit knowledge, and then combination, it's explicit knowledge to explicit knowledge. And we have the internalization, which is the explicit knowledge and tacit knowledge. You know, this one is my favorite KM model because it's very adaptable to any types and kinds of situations, no? And it's, kumbaga, can be applied to everything, no? In every activity, no? Actually, ginagamit ko nga yan sa aking dissertation, no? Because I want to produce, no, my own information literacy framework. Tawag ko dyan ay ano pa, although hindi pa po buo, the Sajona model, no, of information literacy with a flavor of knowledge management. So may integration using the SESI model. Okay? So this model represent also how knowledge interacts within the knowledge enterprise. No? Sa human capital, social capital, and organizational capital. Just like, for example, in socialization, no, yung I is the individual, so tacit to tacit. Ibig sabihin, it's individual and a certain individual who, kumbaga, discuss more about the knowledge. Kaya socialization, kwentuhan, how do we socialize, di ba? We do, kumbaga, yung mga marites, di ba? Tsaka Marisol, nagkikwentuhan lang. So, it's a form of socialization. If we're talking about externalization, we are trying to, kumbaga, translate tacit knowledge into explicit knowledge. That is why the center of this externalization is the organization itself. So every individual who have this tacit knowledge, kumbaga, contribute to the organizational knowledge. Diba? Nanghihingi ng report, sige, gagawa tayo ng report. So, gumawa ng report ng library, pinasa sa boss, ni-report ng boss sa top management. That is explicit. That is externalization. Okay? So, nag-originate ang knowledge doon sa individual and nag-produce siya ng bagong data na nagbibigay ng bagong knowledge sa organization. And that is externalization. Tacit to explicit. And if we're talking about combination, we're talking about explicit to explicit. Sorry, sa group pala itong externalization. Kumbaga, sa loob ng library, gumawa ng report ang mga librarians, pinasa sa kanilang immediate supervisor or chief librarian, no? At yung chief librarian gumawa ng panibagong report out of this. So, yun ang pinuproduce ng externalization. While sa combination, no, it's more about the group that contributes to the organization. So, explicit, nagpasa ng report ng library, ginamit ng top management, at yun na yung na-produce nilang bagong knowledge. Just like accreditation and quality assurance. That is an example of explicit knowledge to explicit. So, it's a combination. Yung mga exhibits po na pinuproduce natin is a form of combination. Okay? Internalization, no? Ito yung medyo mahirap, no? Because you want that certain individual to have tacit knowledge, no? From explicit to tacit. Nagturo tayo. We provide information literacy session to our students or to our clients, no? And then you communicate this to the group, no? And then kailangan nag-emanate sa buong organization. So nagta-translate po yan into culture. And that culture is what we call tacit knowledge. Nagiging natural. Okay, para nanood ka ng nag-aral ka mag-drive, ano? So you have your manual, 'di ba? You read the manual. You're being kumbaga instructed by the uh, driving instructor. You learn how to drive. Eventually, you can now drive your own car. So that is tacit knowledge. No? Even yung mga style yung of driving, no, nag-branch out na yung skills mo, that becomes tacit knowledge. No? Kaya itong sinasabi na SESI model, no, is an example of knowledge creation. No? Naka-vent siya towards knowledge creation. Example pa, one more. Yan. Okay, so this one naman is an example of different activities. No? If we're doing socialization, sharing experiences to create shared mental models. No? That is why in the library, no, yung ano bang tawag dito, echoing is very important. If someone attended a certain meeting, a seminar, that person echoes, no, his or her learnings towards that seminar. And that is one way of sharing experiences to create a shared mental model. So, ibig sabihin ng mental models, it's how we imagine things, it's how we recreate, no, the knowledge using our creativity, no. Mental nga ibig sabihin sa brain natin nangyayari siya. Okay? So, learning through observation, imitation, and practice. So, tatlo po yan, no? We learn through observation. If you're a very observant person, no? Especially if you're a neophyte librarian, no? I remember when I was working in a school library, from working in a special library to school library is a big transition for me because I need to adjust. I don't know how to attack, no? Ibig sabihin how to strategize, no? In terms of providing services in a school library. So sabi nung aking immediate head, Joemar, you watch me doing my library orientation na. Sabi niya ganun. Yes, boss. Sabi kong ganyan. So after observing her, no, doing the orientation, ako na kagad. So, ganon. So, natututo na lang ako kung paano ba ginagawa yung pag-orient because before I didn't have any experiences in doing library orientation. My field of work is highly specialized in a special library. So, therefore, wala naman kami mga orientation. Okay, we also do some imitation, di ba? When we imitate someone, no, usually yan ang highest form ng admiration yung nag-imitate tayo eh. So we also learn by imitating someone. And of course by practice, no? By doing things regularly, we learn how to do it. No? Externalization, no? Articulating tacit knowledge in explicit concepts, like doing strategic planning. So before we dive in with the planning stage, you will be, kumbaga, required to attend certain seminar, 'di ba? May mga trainings muna before you translate this into a document. So that is an example of externalization. Use of metaphors, analogies, hypotheses, and models, and then concept creation through dialogue and collective reflection. Diba? Just like for example, how we do FGD, yung focus group discussion, how we do our researches, diba? Yung mga thesis natin, no? There is concept creation through dialogue, you interview someone, or you read something, no? Yung mga journals, and then nag-pop out sa brain mo, I need to conduct a study on this. Diba? So that is tacit to explicit. No? Na-interview mo, you heard about this person, and that triggers you to do a research. No? Yung paper mo is a form of explicit knowledge. Okay? So combination, systematizing concepts into a knowledge system, combining different bodies of explicit knowledge, use of media including IT. No? Like for example, when I was teaching as an kumbaga LIS faculty, my subject is more about technology. No, siguro may mga estudyante rin ako rito, no. I'm requiring them to do some knowledge system, like for example, in the indexing, no? Yung mga literature indexing, di ba? Yung mga ganyan, ways on how to conduct indexing, no? Information analysis, no? Doing some kumbaga, plans, programs, budgeting. So all of these are forms of knowledge system. So if we're talking about knowledge system, it doesn't mean that it is always bent towards the use of technology. Sometimes it's more about the proper way of doing things, no? Kaya nga systematic, no? It's the acceptable way of doing things. That if you will conduct planning, this is the first step, no? Second step, if you will write your policy, your guidelines, your rules and regulation, yan yung mga estudyante ko sa management, alam na alam yan, proper way of writing it, di ba? That is a knowledge system. You are, kumbaga, educating or transferring knowledge through your through your documents and products. Okay? Sometimes, gagamit po tayo ng media, including IT, no? The way we conduct orientation right now, our IL session is very interactive. Sometimes you are required to record, you are required to screencast, di ba? So, you're using technology. So, it is explicit to explicit. Internalization, no? Embodying explicit knowledge into tacit knowledge, just like yung mga actors natin, di ba? When they are reading scripts, no? Nag-aano sila mismo, they internalize, no? They're, putting flavor, no? Na sila lang ang nakakagawa, no? Nung activity na yon. So, therefore, that is explicit to tacit. So, learning by doing to arrive at shared mental models, no? Use of documents, manuals, and oral stories, di ba? If someone is, for example, in the library, no, the importance of procedural manual is very high. Why? Because if the librarian is absent, no, of course, the next librarian will take charge of that activity. So, paano niya gagawin? So, that librarian can read the procedural manual. So he or she will be guided on how to do a certain procedure inside the library. So explicit to tacit. Okay? So yun ang application ng SESI model, no, in terms of the knowledge management. Next one is the Mogowitz and Williams model. No, mapapansin natin it's a bit more different than Nonaka's model, no, KM model. So it emphasizes the why and the when. Basta sabihin niyo, sir, saan po dyan yung why tsaka saan yung when? Okay, so everything evolves in the knowledge, no? Sabi natin, no? Diyan ang pinaka-center. So the why, no, talks about getting knowledge, no, using knowledge, and learn from that knowledge, and then you contribute with that knowledge, no, for you to contribute to the body of knowledge. Just like for example, doing your thesis, doing your research, what is your purpose in doing the research? Diba? So the first thing that you will need to accomplish is for you to know what is your purpose. Why do we need to conduct that research? Diba? Ngayon, kung ang sagot ay, sir, I don't know, therefore, you must not, kumbaga, do that research activity because you don't know kumbaga, what is your purpose. Diba? So, therefore, if you know your purpose, you are guided. So, therefore, you can learn something and you can contribute. No? The when talks about, like, for example, the assessment or the evaluation. So, you have your knowledge and you need to assess your knowledge. And you need to build that knowledge if you have limited information, limited knowledge about certain topics. So therefore, you need to build that knowledge. In order to build that knowledge, you need to get it. So pupunta ka naman sa why. Pero if you don't know that knowledge, therefore there is no reason for you to stay. You need to divest. Ibig sabihin, you need to give up and look for other knowledge. So, sometimes, meron talaga mga journey in terms of knowledge management that, let's face it, we are lacking. Diba? Like, for example, when I was doing my first topic, no, sa dissertation, the Internet of Things. That is way back around 2016, I think. or 17, no? And that is not still available in the Philippines, so I do not have any choice but to give up. Okay? So that is an example of the divestment. Okay? This model talks about yan more of the strategic focus because you need to think more about on how to get that knowledge. Okay? And how to use it. Okay? And by using it, you will learn and you can contribute to the body of knowledge. The next one is to be more responsive to tactical and strategic changes and needs. Diba? So this model is talking more about different strategies in terms of acquiring knowledge and recreating new knowledge. So kaya nga merong get, merong assess. So merong why, merong when na feature ang KM model na ito. Okay, it's very simple, no? Ginagamit din yan in terms of creating something, na especially sa mga procedural and strategic directions. Choose KM model, no, talks about sense making, no? Yan ang pinaka-idea ng choose KM model, no? How to make sense making. No? 'Di ba pag tinatanong kayo, do I make sense? Yun ang ibig sabihin niya. So sense making talks more about how the organization will adapt and continue to prosper. Okay? In a dynamic and complex environment. So we're talking more about the adaptability of the organization, making sense on what the organization is doing. So if kung nonsense ang ginagawa ng organization, therefore, there is no more reason to continue that activity. You need to stop. So within the organization, within the library, we need to think more about sense making in all of our activities. Okay? So sabi rito, no, complex environment through activities of prospecting and interpretation of relevant information, enabling it to understand changes, trends, and scenarios. So andun ang key of sense making. If we know how to enable and fully understand changes and trends and different scenarios, therefore there is a kumbaga there is this assurance that we can fully adapt in any given situation. Just like for example this pandemic, no? Sinasabi ko nga lagi, no? This is our second year, so therefore you are expected to transition everything, no? In 2 years time. So nakapag-adjust na po tayo. So if I make if I will think of topics to be kumbaga topics for research, no, for my library, I will not tackle any more pandemic type ng mga information because I believe that we are done. No? We already adjusted with the new normal. That is why we need to recreate what is already written during pandemic. No? We bring it to the next level. We understand changes. What are the available trends right now, and what are the new scenarios. No, we're talking more about yung sabi ko nga, 'di ba, yung laging sinasabi rin ni Sir Kevin, yung high flex. 'Di ba? It's a combination of hybrid and flexible. We're not talking more about the hybrid before pandemic. No, it's hybrid. During pandemic, it's flexible. But right now, in the new normal, we're calling it as high flex. It's a combination of hybrid and flexible approach in managing our libraries. We need to fully understand our clients. We need to fully understand our suppliers. Ano yung mga products na ino-offer nila. We need to fully understand our competitors for us to gain competitive advantage. No? Sa KM, no, competitive advantage is one of the best topics. No? And for us to stay relevant in the market. And other external environmental factors or actors. That is what we call sense making. And also, sense making is connected to knowledge creation by using shared meaning. So it allows organization to create or acquire, organize, and process information, no, in order to generate new knowledge. Sometimes shared meaning is different from different sectors and different organizations. No, academic is different from school. and different from special libraries and public libraries. So, kumbaga meron talaga silang differences. We need to create our own shared meanings in order for us to create, acquire, organize, and process information for knowledge creation. Sabi nga, external information and knowledge. And this new knowledge and new capabilities will be translated into decision making. So decision making, no, talks about how the organization must choose the best option among those that are plausible and presented and pursued. Like for example, in the library, are we still continue to acquire physical books in the library, or are we going to be more flexible now in terms of acquiring library resources? Are we engaging now into an electronic version of different information resources, or iba kakalimutan na po natin yung physical? That is a decision to make within the organization. Are we going to create different kinds of service, no, in the library because of the pandemic? Are we going to change the competencies of our librarians and make them more dynamic, no, to adapt doon sa high flex platform or high flex type of service in the library? That is a decision to make. So in order for us to properly decide on this matter, we need knowledge creation. And before we can put meaning into this, we need to properly adapt by doing sense making, streams of experience, no? At vice versa. So it's a loop, no? It's a cycle, no? Pwede kung saan ka mas komportable, pwede ka mag-start kahit saan. Although syempre sa model na ito, it is advisable that we need to start using sense making for us to kumbaga share different meanings and create new knowledge and arrive in a good decision. Okay? So yun, no? Just like in our school, no? Sa university, sa PNU, no? Right now we are investing, no, for our smart campus project into a high flex approach. So it's combination of face to face and online. Yun na, nagde-develop na kami ng mga classroom for that matter, no? Kasi it's already kumbaga a new uh, parang new season, no? With this pandemic, meron na tinatawag na new normal. So we need to adapt with that one. Okay, next. Okay, so eto, no, yung tinatawag na WIGS KM model, no. Si WIG, famous din ito when it comes to to the KM world, no. So si WIG naman is a firm believer of knowledge creation also. Now, in order for us to really, no, create new knowledge, we need to hold in that knowledge, no. And in order for us to do that, eto, no, meron akong ginawa rito, no. We need to build knowledge. Paano mo i-build ang knowledge? Sabi kanina, no, it's the human capacity to take effective action, no. That is knowledge. So how are we going to build our own knowledge? So we need to obtain it, we need to analyze it, we need to reconstruct, synchronize, codify. No? Codification is a big word in KM. No? May codification and personalization. No? Organized knowledge from external and internal knowledge sources. So we have many options in terms of how we build knowledge. Ang library ba ay nagbe-build ng knowledge? Yes, of course. There are lots of information inside the library. Pero ilang libraries ba ang nagbe-build ng knowledge? Diba? That is still a question. So we can learn from personal experience, formal education and training, no? Intelligence sources, media, books, and peers. No? Alam nyo, yung ini-envision ko na project ko sa dissertation is the integration of Internet of Things towards library services. Na hindi mo na kailangan mag-read ng shelves, no? Na kahit saan mo ilagay ang book, ma-access mo siya, mahahanap mo siya. Kasi may mga sensors ang mga shelves, no? If you want to borrow books, no, you don't need anymore a lot of, kumbaga, manpower and effort to do that. By integrating the different content, no, automatic may index na siya, automatic makakatalog na siya. That is my vision. So, wala pang gumagawa ng gano'n. So, that's how we build knowledge. Okay? Inside the library. So, we need to be more creative. Ano? Sa university, we're also trying out yung virtual ID. No? Na ang vision ko naman as MIS director is i-replace na yung physical ID ng virtual ID like the passport na you can buy sa canteen, you can borrow books, you can enroll using your virtual ID, so on and so forth. So that's how we conceive, no, yung mga recreation ng knowledge using different knowledge resources. Hold that knowledge. You remember, accumulate, embed, and archive knowledge in repositories and other digital forms. Diba? You need to hold of that. No? Uh, like for example, if we're attending seminars and trainings, ang kakatapos lang namin sa NAC, we need to hold that knowledge. And in order for us to hold that knowledge, we need to, kumbaga, document that knowledge. Sabi nga rito, tacit knowledge, informal and formal sharing of experiences. Expert interviews, lesson learned, no? Tangible forms, manuals, specification books, database. We need to write, translate that into policies, translate that into rules and regulations, so on and so forth. So, yun. And then pool of knowledge, no, coordinate, no, access, retrieve, assemble. So, this is the system itself. No, sabi nga rito KM system, no, intranet, database, no, it could be a group of people, no. Yun na rin yung ginagawa, yung mga systems integration. Later, ipapakita ko po sa inyo kung paano yun, ano. And of course, yung use of knowledge. So, we need to really learn how to properly use knowledge by analyzing, using synthesis, no, evaluate, no, decide, implement, so on and so forth. So in terms of the KM system, we need to fully understand how to use pooled knowledge. Just like in using database, now how are we going to interpret different information found in our database? No? Ipapakita ko rin mamaya iyon. By use of data analytics, by use of data visualization, so that our top management will learn how to properly decide on different matters using pooled knowledge. Okay? For example, if we want enrollment data, o tayo naman, if you're doing statistics, no, ilan ba yung nag-borrow ng gantong book? Bibilangin ba siya? No. You will access the database of your library system. That is the role of your system. Okay? To give you, no, preview, to give you available information and translate that into knowledge. Nakita mo na pala, nag-research ka, nakita mo you're not very good in your collection. So what will you do? You need to use that information. That will not stop there. So you need to recreate your collection management program. You need to recreate your strategic plan because nakita mo you need to adjust. That is how we use knowledge. So, ilang research na ba ang nagamit natin? Yes, we're doing research on a regular basis, but the question is, ginamit ba natin yung result? So if the answer is no, that is considered to be pooled knowledge. So incomplete ang process. We need to use that knowledge embedded in your studies. Okay, hindi lang siya basta palamutin because you want to present, because of promotion, yung mga ganong klase. You need to do something to use that knowledge embedded in your studies. In doing policies, yes, we have policies. Pero sumusunod ba yung ating mga clients doon sa policies natin or sa ating guidelines? So you need to use that in order for you to produce quality service. That is how we use knowledge in doing different policies. Yes, nakita mo, no? Like for example, for your information, no, by July, maraming changes pagdating sa Google, no, kasi may bayad na po ang Google. So, kung lagpas-lagpas na kayo sa allowable storage capacity, you will feel it by July. So, kailangan gamitin namin yon. So, how are we going to transition? So, bumili kami ng account. So, how are we going to transition? Ngayon pa lang, iniisip na namin yon. How are we going to, kumbaga, transition? So, meron na kami mga available information. We already interviewed the supplier, nakabili na kami ng mga accounts. So, we need to track everything and recreate knowledge, the proper way of using Google Workspace. Kasi, liliit na ang storage capacity. So, we educate our clients on how to use it properly. That's how we use knowledge. Okay? So, that is the WIGS KM model. The next one is this one, yung kay Boto naman, the knowledge model, KM model, wherein the focus is the KM solutions. No? So sabi niya, if we're going to create KM solutions, you need to have these three. No? Naka-Venn diagram siya. Knowledge creation and sensing. You need knowledge organizing and capturing, and knowledge sharing and dissemination, just like the KM process. But this time, the approach is different. Knowledge creation and sensing is focusing more on the human resources. So individuals need to create knowledge and sense making. No? While knowledge organizing and capturing is also focusing on the humans, but this time, they need to learn how to properly organize, personalize, di ba? Meron tayong codification and personalization. So this time, gagamitin mo ang context mo to recreate knowledge and make it more personalized, just like what I'm doing in this activity, in this seminar. No? Na kung ituturo ko po ito sa KM students ko, hindi po ganito ang aking approach. It's a bit more different. But since hindi naman po kayo mga ano talaga nag-aaral ng KM, we need to really bring it down into your level. So, we personalize the knowledge and you need to capture it. Okay? While sharing and dissemination lies in the technology focus. So, yung technology na yung bahala na mag-share, mag-collaborate, at mag-access ng information. Just like, for example, the use of learning management system. Is it advisable for the libraries to use learning management system? Pagdating sa mga special libraries, maybe yes, maybe no. So it depends upon the program. But that is one of the triggers, yung technology. Is there a need for us to have a database inside the library? Kung meron naman tayong mga print copies, are we required to do tagging of documents or indexing different documents using technology? That is a question. But in this model, sinasabi dyan that in terms of knowledge sharing and dissemination, technology can help further to share and disseminate knowledge across the organization, across individuals. So, yun yung sinasabi ng model. Okay. Next one is KM tools and techniques. So we've already done talking more about what KM is all about, what knowledge is all about, yung mga different KM models, KM processes, so on and so forth. Or this time, we'll be talking more about different KM tools and techniques. How can the libraries, lalo na yung special libraries, use knowledge management as a tool? At what are the available techniques? Next, ito yung mga KM tools. Medyo madami. Okay, account pa yan. Medyo marami po yan. Appreciative inquiry, yung vast spaces, it's an parang space wherein knowledge takes place. So, pwede siyang physical, pwede siyang online, pwede siyang rental space. Yun ang ibig sabihin ng benchmarkings, blogs and wikis, so on and so forth. Marami po dyan. Pero magbibigay po tayo ng sample na very practical. The use of continuous improvement review. You're very familiar about this. So, sabi niyo lagi pwedeng sa recommendation, action plan, or reports, we need to continuously improve. The question is how? How are we going to improve? What are the right questions to ask in order for us to improve? Are we really capturing the right knowledge for us to continuously improve? These are reflective questions. No? So in doing CIR or continuous improvement review, you need to know no, the importance and purpose of doing CIR. Sabi sa description, no, approach or process that helps both individuals and teams improve future performance by identifying and capturing lessons learned from the past. You know, one of the best, kumbaga, uh, di naman innovation, but rather practice of our school, PNU, is always to do debriefing. Like for example, if we're done doing accreditation, after accreditation, we do debriefing. After certain conducting certain seminar, we do debriefing. What is the role of debriefing? This is to capture lesson learned from that certain activity. So our management no, process this input and applies this kapag time na ulit gamitin. Like for example, yung yearly ginagawa, uh, ISO audit, so internal, debriefing, anong lesson learned dyan para pag nag-internal, external visit ay prepared na kami. So we're always capturing lesson learned. Okay? At hindi natatapos yun. No? That is how we adopt yung continuous improvement review. So it supports problem solving, identifying, collecting, sharing lessons, lessons learned and best practices, no, organizational learning, and we learn. Okay? We learn from that one, and that is very effective to us. No, lalo pag alam niyo na ino-audit kayo ng COA, no, pag nabigyan kayo ng AOM, that is a good kumbaga reference, no. Alam niyo po sa government, pag naka-receive kami ng AOM, naku, malaking ano 'yon, warning sign for us na merong problema, no, somewhere. So kailangan lang namin i-explain, pero ano yung mga na-encounter namin, bakit nangyari yung AOM, pinag-aaralan yung para hindi na maulit the next time. Okay? In terms of level of knowledge, so KN is the abbreviation for knowledge. Focus on shallow knowledge, continuous use, open the door to development of deep domain knowledge. So later sa framework, ipapakita ko po yan. So siya ay medium and potentially wide. So meaning to say, it's not very hard and it is applicable to all. Kaya sinasabing potentially wide. So individuals and teams no, systematically and methodologically answers 5 questions. What did we intend to do? What did we actually do? Why were there differences? What do we want to sustain? And what do we want to do differently? These are 5 important questions that if you will answer it no, wholeheartedly, you can draft your continuous improvement review very well. And this will bolster different initiatives no, in order for you to enhance, in order for you to recreate certain activity, certain documentation, or the knowledge itself. Okay? So ito yung sinasabi ko no, kung bakit surface, shallow, potential, deep. No? Sa levels of knowledge, we're also talking about surface. Ibig sabihin yung knowledge mo pang ibabaw lang. Meron naman shallow, medyo gitna, at merong deep. No? In order for us to engage in the deep level, we need to really be more reflective in doing our CIR. No? Yes, we have the information, but how are we going to translate that information into knowledge? So, sa model na ito, actually, it's a model. Ano? Pero activity, tool itong ginagamit. So, if you only provide basic information like the what and the how, no? Nasa surface ka pa lang. Like for example, yung first question, it's very basic. What did we intend to do? No? Ano ba yung ginagawa natin? Okay, what did we actually do? Ano yung nangyari? The actual happenings. Why were there differences? So, pumapasok ka na rin sa why. No? In WH. No? Na why, no? Actually, what basic information. But the why, no? Medyo nagiging shallow na. because you're looking into the reasoning, no? Or you already engaging, papasok na roon sa knowledge. What do we sustain and what do we do differently? So potential deep knowledge. What do we do differently? So this time you'll be using your brain to think more about the differences of how you do things. No? You nagko-compare ka na. And of course, ang result nyan is yung forward action. So that it will guide you to better uh, recreate, no, knowledge embedded in your activities. O, yun lagi. So that is how you translate information into knowledge using the continuous improvement review. Okay? So, yun lang po ang ibig sabihin ng CIR. The next one is best practices. So, dito mahilig ang mga librarians, best practices. We always do benchmarking. But sad to say, our benchmarking is just like field trip. You go to this place, makikita nyo yung kagandahan, maiinggit tayo, i-envy nyo yung library. Buti ka pa, ang ganda ng library nyo, pero yung library namin hindi maganda. Pero pag uwi nyo, did you already experience thinking about good things that you observe in that library? And you document that one and apply that into your own library. Na-experience nyo na ba yun or hindi? After mag-benchmarking, kalimutan na yan, okay na yan, namasyal lang kami. Parang ginawa rin namin yung one time. We went to Thailand, we went to Chulalongkorn University, we went to the library. No, tapos nag-benchmark kami, interview. Pag uwi sa university, wala naman. Walang nangyari. So, best practices, the best, dito tayo magpunta, that is connected to this, tool and technique. A best practice is a process or methodology that represents an effective way of achieving a specific objective. Okay? So ibig sabihin, when we identify BPs, ito yung mga effective way of achieving specific objective. No? Ibig sabihin, unique to your library. So pag yan, meron si library A, meron si library B, that is not a best practice sa point of view ng accreditation. But sa point of view ng KM, if you achieve your objective successfully using this kind of process or method, that is considered to be a best practice. And you need to document that. No? So ito yung mga sample. The author user of IBP has knowledge informing, grounded on certain insights, theories, and principles, as well as knowledge proceeding. So if I'm going to successfully integrate knowledge management into information literacy, no, framework and models, that is considered to be a best practice. But before I can do that, I need to be grounded by acquiring knowledge informing. So ito pong ibig sabihin niyan. So knowledge can be taught as knowledge informing and knowledge proceeding. So if that is informing, justified true beliefs, incoming information, and memory. That is knowledge informing. Proceeding talks about actions and creation of new knowledge. Pero as you can observe, creation of new knowledge influence memory. Why? Siyempre, gumagawa ka ng sariling style. Your own way of doing things. You contextualize knowledge because you remember you've encountered this situation. So this time, you will do it differently. So you are recreating knowledge. Kaya nagpo-produce ng new knowledge. And also, new knowledge is being, kumbaga, influenced by the justified true beliefs. Kasi minsan yung mga moral beings natin, naapektuhan yan, the way we view, like for example, politics in the Philippines, di ba? Siyempre, ibaboto mo yung pinaniniwalaan mo. No? Naapektuhan yun sometimes ng principles mo. So, ganun din pagdating sa knowledge. Sometimes, someone is saying this, no, yung mga philosophy sa buhay, no, naapektuhan yun ng paniniwala. So therefore, you've been creating or recreating knowledge because of your justified true beliefs. Okay? So I will skip this, no. This is how to write your best practice. Bibigyan naman kayo ng copy na I'll be sending the PDF of this one, the organizer. So, name your best practice. Usually, ito yung pinapagawa ko sa mga students ko, no? In order for them to really document their best practice. No? Hanggang doon sa pinaka-ilalim. Okay. So, I will skip this. So, lesson learned process, di ba? Kung paano ba din na-document yung lesson learned process, capture and provide lessons that can benefit employees who encounter situations closely resemble a previous experience in a similar situation. So, you need to collect the lessons, you need to verify the lessons, you need to store the lessons, and you need to disseminate it. Like for example, yung mga incident report, no, kailangan meron po kayo dyan. Ang importante lang po dyan is that you apply the lessons. No? Browsable, executable, and outcome, and reuse. So whenever we've encountered, like for example, during the briefing, lesson learned, we process that one. And the next time, it is more accessible to us that if we encountered it again, we know how to react, we know how to strategize with that problem and create new knowledge out of this. Okay? Example, risk analysis. Diba? Sometimes, we refuse to create risk analysis. No? Ako, sabi ko nga, additional work na naman yan. But the important thing is that risk analysis will help you document or anticipate future risks. So that if you encounter this, you know how to properly address. And that creates knowledge. No? So that is how we apply lesson learned process. Okay, knowledge-centered design view talks more about information governance, so the use of knowledge, formal institutional rules. So ito yung ginawa ko sa our records office namin tsaka sa archives namin. So we practice record keeping and accountability, so we have the knowledge. So isa-cite lang namin yung mga batas dyan, yung mga circular, statutory, and regulatory requirements in terms of information governance. No, we create the corporate memory or the organizational memory by doing record keeping, creating systems, improving our business processes, and we formalize our procedure so that it will be easier to share and disseminate knowledge of record keeping. And in terms of formal rules, no, we organize rules and relationship between our office and the different teams within the university. And in terms of ideas and evidence, we develop different methods and frameworks. No, we also strategize and use our kumbaga OP sa government kasi OPCR po yun, Office Performance Review Commitment form, no? So yung ginagamit namin for us to really document our strategies and our ideas. No? At yun ay under ng accountability. So you have your identity and the outcomes, and you have record keeping and accountability. Okay. So knowledge representation, I think pinakamaganda rin na tool. Like for example, sa library ng cataloging is an example of knowledge representation, indexing. So dito, no, yung model, gumamit kami ng data dictionary. We are planning, no, to use data dictionary. We are on the process of developing our enterprise architecture and data analytics for us to acquire knowledge representation. So this will further help our top management and administrator to better discover and create new knowledge out of this information. For the classification system, for the records, we develop our FSACS or yung Functional Subject Alphabetic Classification System, which is very familiar dito yung mga records officer. We taxonomize our records, we taxonomize our articles, di ba? Kaya nga nagkakaroon tayo ng data mining, we usually do collection mapping. This is one way of classifying the collection itself. So it is an example of knowledge representation. And ito yung sample ng enterprise architecture. Yan po yung itsura niya. Sa isang tinginan mo kagad kung paano ginagawa ang isang bagay. Okay? Although this one is medyo mataas na po yung level na. We develop our own record series, no? Yung RDS na tinatawag, so it's a fit in our office, no? Before, no? At mahirap kasi gumawa ng records disposition schedule, but nung dumating ako 2019, I'm very glad that I have this staff na very knowledgeable also who collaborated with me, and we produce the PNU RDS, which is the benchmark of karamihan ng mga SUCs, no? During our NAP seminar, wala talaga silang RDS, kami pala yung meron. Okay? So yon, that is an example of knowledge taxonomy. Okay? Yung mga record series, gindrop namin into different series. Community of practice, so this one is a very good way of enhancing knowledge. So it's bent towards knowledge sharing. So to create cultural environment that encourage the sharing of knowledge, some organizations are creating knowledge communities. So this group is an example of COP. When you regularly discuss something, talks about your process, improves your process, enhance, is an example of COP. But take note that there are attributes of COP. Hindi porket nag-meeting, nag-usap, kinuha mong data, COP. No. COP is focusing more on the shared domain of practice, alignment with strategic goals and direction, no, crosses operational, functional, and organizational boundaries, and defined by knowledge, not task. So remember, the important thing about COP is knowledge. It should be properly defined. No? Managed by connecting and interaction, focus on value added, mutual exchange, and continuous learning, and evolving agenda. Okay? So medyo binibilisan ko po, no? Focus on KM action plan. So ito lang po yung 4 P's na very important within the organization. So it is embedded in the KM system, no? Yung people, process, products, and organizational performance. So people affects product. If you have good teachers, you have good graduates. So, yun ang pinakamagandang analogy diyan. If you have good librarians, you have good services. Okay? If you have process, that translates to organizational performance. So if your process is very stringent, very systematic, therefore that will be translated into the organizational performance. So ngayon, paano ba ginagawa ang journey towards knowledge management action plan? So you need to have an introduction. There is no standard way of writing the action plan for knowledge management. No, it's very open. So you need to have introduction. You need to state your strategic directions, no, of your library. And this is time-bound. Hanggang kailan? Okay, special libraries as knowledge organization. You need to describe your libraries. No? Kung special library ka, paano ang role ng special library mo within the organization, how you advocate knowledge organization. Paano ka nagpa-function as a form of knowledge organization. And then knowledge gap analysis talks about knowledge and strategic link, yung gap analysis po kanina. Kung mailalagay nyo, kung maipa-plot nyo yun ng maayos sa organization nyo, much better. And knowledge and strategic gap and change management. So you need to identify the gap, no, in terms of knowledge and strategy, no, in your organization, specifically in your library. And you need to elaborate further on how you will go about with the change management, because if you're doing knowledge gap analysis, you are actually pointing and identifying the gap or the kumbaga problems within the organization. So the next thing to do is how will you strategize on implementing these changes, and that calls for change management. KM action plan, so you need to develop your own KM framework. You cannot do a KM action plan without a framework. You need that. You need drivers. You need specific actions and initiatives. No, part of this you need to have indicators and key result area for you to measure your action, the success of your action plan. We also need to revisit our BPs and LLs, yung lesson learns and best practices. No, in order for us to exploit that BPs and lesson learned and explore further on the BPs and LL. So it's exploration and exploitation. No, pag pinag-join po natin yan sa innovation, tawag diyan ay ambidexterity. Okay? And then you come up with the proposed actions in your knowledge management action plan. Okay? Ano na yung mga proposed actions mo at mga initiatives mo. And lastly, you need to monitor and evaluate your action plan by identifying specific roles in the organization, developing the roadmap for implementation, and specifying needed resources, and evaluating the knowledge management action plan. So So that is the composition of your journey towards knowledge management action plan. So medyo ano lang, information overload pero paunti-unti you can do it as long as you have an idea now on what knowledge management is all about. And why do we need KM in special libraries? We need to kumbaga increase our human capital by increasing our expertise. Okay? We need to increase the return of investment. And of course, we need to have a good customer satisfaction. These three, no, it's sila yung major drivers ng knowledge management. No? Bakit tayo nagki-KM? Because of the expertise, we want to expand, we need to explore more, we need to do specific high-level work that is connected to knowledge management. We need to bring back the effort of the organization. Kumbaga, yung mga efforts nila, yung mga support nila to investment, no? And we need to increase our customer satisfaction. And remember, ideas are capital. The rest is just money. Okay? Iba pa rin ang merong idea. That is your capital. In order for you to grow within the organization, within the profession, you need to have ideas. Okay? And the rest will follow. And I will end my presentation with the Naka's quote, no? In an economy where the only certainty is uncertainty, the one sure source of lasting competitive advantage is knowledge. So therefore, as librarians, we need to look for knowledge. We need to engage, especially in this age of uncertainty. And that ends my presentation for this afternoon. Thank you very much for listening with me and for bearing with me for, I think, 1.5 hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sir Joemar. Ayan, malutong na virtual clap po para kay Sir Joemar. Ayan, that was a very informative presentation, Sir Joemar. So, I agree with one of our most active participants, si Miss Jocelyn Camiging. Sabi niya, knowledge management does not only fit for the librarians, it can be applied to anybody, both for professional work and personal life. So, totoo naman. Sabi nga ni Sir Joemar sa pinresent niya kanina, KM is doing what is needed to get the most out of the knowledge resources. So, in order to have a better decision, we need to have enough knowledge. The more we share the knowledge, the more it is enhanced. So, meaning, dun sa sinabi ni Sir Joemar kanina, hindi lang pala material things ang naipapamana, no? So, napapamana din pala ang knowledge. So, sabi ni Sir Joemar kanina, after ng webinar, we need to apply this in our workplaces.
Alright, tama-tama yung
Tama
mga
yan?
tama-tama yung mga topics natin or yung mga na-discuss natin for today, saka yung mga takeaways mo, partner. So additionally, no, knowledge is useless if you don't maximize its use. So tama nga naman, no? Kung ang dami mo ang knowledge, pero nakatenga lang siya dyan, hindi mo siya na-manage na maayos, so hindi mo siya magagamit. The performance of our organization depends on every individual within our organization. In relation, we should have the capacity to take actions which shows our knowledge, and the creation of knowledge is what we call learning. We must get the most out of it through management to create an effective knowledge management system. So, different tools were also discussed in the presentation. Kailangan na lang natin itong i-apply. Be proactive nga, sabi nga ni Sir Joemar. Kaya sa kanya-kanya nating opisina, subukan natin itong i-apply. At personally, I was inspired with the experiences and insights by our speaker.
Yun, totoo. Sabi nga nung isang participant natin, natauhan daw siya. Yan. So, anyway, before we proceed to the Q&A portion, let me remind everyone that the webinar evaluation link will be posted just before the webinar ends. And sa mga kailangan na pong umuwi, ayan, na nasa Zoom room, pwede po kayong lumipat sa ating FB Live. And kapag po wala na po kayong connection sa area kung saan po kayo pupunta, pwede nyo pong panuorin muli ang recording ng ating webinar sa FB page ng library, and you are given until tomorrow at 5 o'clock p.m. to answer the evaluation form. Okay po? Ayan, so we shall now proceed to the Q&A portion. Pero bago yan, Sir Joemar, pwede po bang maghanda po kayo dyan ng 5 katanungan? Maghanda lang po kayo para sa ating maya. Ayan.
Live ba yung
Okay,
question, Ma'am
so
Irene?
Sir Philip?
Live ba yung
Po?
ating Q&A? Live ba?
Yes po, live. Live
po.
po yung after ng Q&A, kayo naman po ang magtatanong mamaya. Ayan. So ngayon po, sasagutin muna ni Sir Joemar yung mga katanungan ng ating audience or participants. Ayan,
Tama,
Sir
tama.
Philip?
Actually, sir, ang daming tanong eh. Pero dahil sa time constraint natin, pili na lang tayo ng mga mangilan-ngilan. Dami
Yes.
dami nito. Pero yon, ang una nating, actually itong una hindi siya tanong, no, kundi comment from Ron Bautista. Ang sabi niya, not a question but a comment. Libraries need to practice strategic analysis. SWOT analysis is one of the most common strategic planning tools that can help libraries formulate strategies to improve its own systems and services. Getting feedback from clients, administration, faculty, peers, and library committee can help provide relevant information. So proceed tayo dun sa tama naman. So proceed tayo sa next question, no? From Sweet and Topacio. Based dun sa essence of knowledge management, sa tingin niyo po ba kaya ang laki ng job qualification sa bansa natin dahil nakabase sila sa intellectual capital din ng TM?
Okay, oo. Actually kasi, lalo ngayon, with this new normal, medyo nag-iiba na rin kasi ang mga competencies, no? Especially yung mga needs ng organization. So what we need to do is to really be more adaptable, syempre, stay relevant, and to increase our own intellectual asset. Sabi nga, lagi ko naririnig to sa wife ko, kay Bo Sanchez, no? Your self-worth is your net worth. Your self-worth is your net worth. So if you want high salary, you need to increase your worth within the organization. That's very basic.
Alright. Nakakuha na siguro yung ni ma'am.
I hope nasagot ko po.
Mahirap talaga, sir, kapag virtual eh.
Yes, sir.
Mahirap. Hindi natin alam kung... Anyway, next question tayo. Galing from anonymous attendee. May anonymous attendee tayo. Can you please provide us a simple template or action plan in creating a knowledge management system? Thank you. Pero parang na-present na to na, sir.
Yes, sir. Opo. Wala po kasing standard template for action plan talaga. So, it's very open. Kaya nga, depende kung ano yung needs ng inyong organization. Pero yung mga elements po, ando na po sa presentation natin kanina.
Yes. And ito, may isang interesting na question. Sabi niya, from Simon John Spangler, sabi niya, how can I connect KM to industrial engineering?
Okay. Sa innovation papasok yan. Okay, if organizational performance, it could be efficiency, effectiveness, and levels of innovations. So, ang KM is somewhat related to innovation. So, if you will increase your efficiency and effectiveness in what you're doing, plus you've, drive innovation within the organization, definitely applies sa inyo. Ang innovation kasi hindi porket may binago ka is an innovation. Actually, if you're talking about innovation sa perspective ng KM, it should have created value. Kailangan po may value. Kung walang value, that is just an invention. Parang ikaw, marunong ka kumanta, pero ikaw lang nakakalam na marunong ka kumanta. I-reinvent mo lang yung sarili mo. Pero pag binabayaran ka na para kumanta, that is an innovation. It creates value.
So kapag may value talaga.
Yes, ma'am. That is the real innovation.
Okay. So, ang next question po from Jocelyn Camiging. Sabi niya, Sir Joemar, what is the requirement to enroll in knowledge management? How many years will it take to finish the course? Is there an online class for it? Thank you.
Sa Philippines po wala. Kaya kami lahat ay dumadayo sa Bangkok University at medyo mahal po ang tuition fee. As of now, nakaka 1.8 million na po kami. Bawat isa po. So, ganun siya. Wala pa po sa Philippines. Hopefully, si PNU magkameron. Pero, in our graduate courses, programs, naka-embed po ang knowledge management, design thinking, curriculum. Lahat po ng graduate courses namin. Merong ganoon.
Okay. Ayun. And ano yung susunod, Sir Philip?
Sir, ito na ang ating last question for today. Ang sabi ng isang attendee ay, I believe most of us are very new to KM systems, and I, for one, admits that I am premature of KM systems. My question is, with the number of KM models you have discussed or introduced to us, can you recommend as to what KM models will be used and can be applied in our individual organization?
Okay, ang pinakamagandang gamitin yung yung SESI model. No, kasi it's very adaptable, very basic. Kitang-kita nyo na po kagad, no, kung anong klaseng knowledge ang i-engage nyo. Tacit to tacit, tacit to explicit, explicit to explicit, and then explicit to tacit. So, yun lang po yung ating guidance doon eh. Actually, like for example, kung i-document po natin ng KM mechanism sa ating organization, marami po kayong maisusulat. Yung paggamit ng email is a form of KM system. No, yung paggamit ng Zoom is a example of KM system. So, nagdedepende lang po kung saan process sila nag-fall. Is it under knowledge discovery, knowledge capturing, knowledge sharing, or knowledge application? So, si SESI model po ang pinakamagandang gamitin.
Yun. So, thank you so much, Sir Joemar. Maraming salamat sa mga nagtanong. Sir Philip?
Sobrang active ng ating mga participants for today, no? Ang dami pa mga questions, pero siguro we will try to compile na lang yung questions and tingnan natin kung ano masasagot pa sa mga susunod nating pagkikita or i-email na lang.
Yes, sir.
So with that, ang tawag dito, game time na.
Yes.
Game time. So,
ako na pressure sa question.
So, game time. So, Miss Irene, sige.
Okay, so since it's game time, ayan, ito po ang mechanics natin. Answer the questions for a chance to win DOST souvenir items. Ayan, Sir Joemar, naka-ready na po ba kayo sa tanong? Ayan.
Sige.
So, dito po. Sir?
Sige po. Ako ba live ko po itatanong or i-chat ko rito?
Live nyo pong itatanong,
live.
sir. So,
sige po. Paunahan lang. Tama po ba?
Yes, sir. So, ganito po yung gagawin natin. Ayan, answer the question. And then, you call the number that we will flash on the screen and answer the question by given by our speaker. So, magtatanong si Sir Joemar, tapos may ipa-flash po sa screen na number at yun po ang tatawagan ninyo. Okay?
Okay, partner, para tayo nasa tutok to win,
Yes, ganun ang peg natin. And ayan, muli po ang evaluation link will be posted bago tayo magtapos. Okay? So stay with us until the end of this session. Okay. So first question, Sir Joemar.
Okay. Give me one type of knowledge. Give me one type of knowledge.
Go.
Dali lang po nun. Madali muna para pahirap.
Ayan, tawag na. Nag-aantay po kami ng tatawag. Give me one type of knowledge daw. Sabi ni Sir Joemar, bawal po sa chat.
Tawag naman kayo.
Ayan, may tumatawag na.
Hala.
Hello? Hello po. Yes, ma'am. Ano pong pangalan nila?
Sheila Bardilia po.
Sheila Bardilia. Naririnig ba?
Oh, naririnig.
Ayun,
Ma'am.
naririnig. So, sir, ma'am, ano po ang sagot ninyo?
Tacit knowledge po.
Tacit knowledge. Tama po ba, Sir Joemar? Tama.
Tama.
Okay. So, congratulations, ma'am. Kindly message your complete name and address po. Thank you. Okay, Sir Joemar. Next
Okay.
question po.
Next question. Specific intellectual capital that talks about expertise, experience, capability, capacity, and creativity.
Yan. Ulitin niyo, sir?
Specific intellectual capital that talks about expertise, experience, capability, capacity, and creativity.
Okay, and here's the number. Ibang number
Ay,
po.
ibang number. Ang galing ah.
Ang daming number ah.
Daming number nito.
Ayan na po ang tatawagan ninyo.
Dapat yung mga tatawag na magsisigawan din yung audience sa bahay.
Ayan, ibang number pala, no? Ayan, meron na
May
nga.
tumunog na. Yung iba, walang load. Magpa-load na.
Ayan, hello?
Hi, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, sir. Ano pong pangalan nila?
Hi, ma'am. This is Michael. From DOST Region 1.
From DOST Region 1, Sir Michael. Okay, ano pong sagot ninyo?
Sabi ko lang po, human capital po.
Human capital daw, Sir Joemar? Correct. So, sir, text lang po ninyo yung inyong complete name and address. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Ayan, congratulations. Next question, Sir
Okay,
Joemar,
next
pangatlo.
question. Okay, and processes po tayo ha. The process through which explicit or tacit knowledge is communicated to other individuals. Anong type ng KM process po yan? Again, the process through which explicit or tacit knowledge is communicated to other individuals.
Ayan, ito po yung number na tatawagan ninyo.
Anong klaseng KM processes po iyan?
Okay. Nag-aantay kami. Ayun, may tumatawag na. And, ayan. Hello? Hello po? Hello?
Naku, nawalan ng load.
Ako hindi siya sumasagot. Ayun, couldn't connect daw.
Nawalan ng load.
Okay. Okay, next one. Hello? Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, Justin, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Ano pong pangalan nila?
Lorraine na camera po.
Lorraine, ayan. So, ano pong sagot ninyo?
Seaside po.
Seaside daw po, Sir Joemar? Hindi daw po.
KM processes po KM processes po.
Ayan, KM processes daw po.
O,
Okay.
sige.
Ayan,
Okay.
next po.
Bibigyan ko ng clue, ma'am. Baka nahirapan. Letter A.
Sir Joemar, ano po? Next caller tayo. Next caller.
Sige, baka meron.
Hello? Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, ma'am. What's your name po?
Shona Chavez.
Shona Chavez. Ano pong sagot nila?
Application.
Application daw, Sir Joemar. Hindi din daw
Aging.
po. Ayan. Okay, next caller po tayo. Sorry, ma'am. Okay. Hello? Ano pong pangalan nila?
Reggie po.
Reggie? Ayan. Ano pong sagot nila? Sharing daw po, Sir Joemar.
Tumpak, si Nicanor.
Yes, tama. Ayan. Congratulations, ma'am. Kindly message us your complete name and address. Thank you so much. And fourth question po.
Okay, fourth question. Okay, justified true beliefs, incoming information and memory is under what knowledge?
Ayan. And this is the number that you're going to call.
Ayan, ulit ha. Justified true beliefs, incoming information and memory is under what knowledge? Dalawa lang naman yan.
Ayan, yung mga wala pong load, sorry po.
Hindi na daw kasi uso yung load ngayon.
Okay.
Next
Ayan.
time, pa-load talaga sila.
Messenger na.
Hello?
Tacit knowledge po.
Tacit knowledge daw po. Ano pong pangalan nila?
Diyan po nababanilyo po.
Jan. Ayan. Tacit knowledge. Hindi daw po, sir. Sorry.
May nakakuha sa chat eh. Ayun na. Chat box yung sagot.
Ayan, dito po ang tatawagan ninyo sa number na naka-flash.
Ayun.
Ayan. Hello? Ayan, hello sir. Ano pong pangalan nila?
Diyan po.
Jan Paul ulit. Okay. Ano pong sagot?
Implicit knowledge po.
Again?
Implicit knowledge.
Implicit knowledge daw, Sir Joemar.
Hindi po.
Sorry, sir. Hindi po. Next caller. Ayan.
Ako nahirapan, mama.
Hello.
Hello. Ganun po.
Good afternoon po. Ano pong sagot nila?
Informing knowledge po.
Informing knowledge daw, Sir Joemar. Very good. Congratulations. Ayan, kindly send us your complete name and complete address. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, and for the final question, ito na po,
Okay.
Sir Joemar.
Sige, wait lang ah.
Kaka-enjoy naman to.
Oo nga eh.
Ayan, may tumatawag na kaagad. Sorry.
Wala pa punta.
Wala pa pong tanong.
Okay, type of knowledge of KM tools and techniques that documents lessons that can benefit employees who encounter lessons. KM tools and techniques that capture and provides lessons that can benefit employees who encounter situations.
Ayan, ito po ang number. Ayan, sige, pwede na po kayong tumawag. Hello, good afternoon.
Action plan.
Ang sagot po, Sir Joemar, action plan. Hindi daw po. Sorry, ma'am. Ayan, next caller po. Hello?
Diba?
Hello, sir. Ano pong, ano po?
Martin Hill po.
Sir?
At least,
Hindi ko masyadong maintindihan.
lesson learned process mo answer ko.
A lesson learned process. Ayan, tama. Ayan, congratulations, sir. Ayan. Message po yung inyong complete name and address. Thank you so much. Ayan, maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Thank you so much, Sir Joemar. Ayan. So, hopefully, nag-enjoy po kayo lahat. Ayan, may mga tumatawag pa po. Pero hanggang doon lang po yung ating palaro. Ayan. So, congratulations to our winners. And may I request all the winners once again to send your complete name and address doon sa tinawagan po ninyo na number.
Okay.
And we will be contacting you on how you can claim your prize. Yes, Philip, go.
Okay. Hindi lang naman sila ang nag-enjoy, pati tayo mga nakikinig sa kanila at mga kung sino yung tatawag, inaabangan talaga natin as host. Pero yun, sana nag-enjoy tayong lahat. At ako'y nag-enjoy din talaga sa pag-game natin today. At this point, may I call on Miss Linderlit M. Maglake to read the citation and award the certificate of appreciation to our speaker and the certificate of participation to our participants. Ma'am Linder.
Hello, ayan. Di ba ang saya? Ayan nyo, gagawa kami ng bagong mechanics para makasama din yung mga nasa Zoom natin na participants. So, on behalf po of the By the way po, thank you very much, Director Joemar. Sana po mapaunlakan niyo po ulit kami. So this is a very entertaining and enlightening and insightful presentation po on knowledge management system. And also for highlighting the importance po ng ating AM. We truly agree that as a librarian, mga information professional, we do need to invest more about knowledge and increase our expertise. Tama po yun, sir. And because of that, sana po makita uli namin kayo sa ating mga susunod na webinars, di ba, sir? Ayan. So with that po, on behalf of the Department of Science and Technology, Science and Technology Information Institute, and the Association of Special Libraries of the Philippines, we would like to present the Certificate of Appreciation to Mr. Joemar D. Sajona for serving as a resource speaker for the DOST-STII Library webinar in partnership with ASLP entitled Establishing an Effective Knowledge Management System, held today, April 29, 2022, via Zoom and FB Live, given this 29th day of April 2022, signed by our Director, Director Richard P. Burgos, and the President of ASLP, Mr. Brian Boyce Cortez. Again, thank you very much po, Sir Joemar, and we hope we can invite you again to our future webinars. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much din po. Thank you very much.
We would also like to present the Certificate of Appreciation to our Filipino Sign Language interpreters. Sila Miss Natividad P. Natividad, si Ma'am Nati, and Mr. Bayani G. Generoso Jr., Sir Bayani, for serving as our Sign Language interpreter for the DOST-STII Library webinar in partnership with ASLP entitled Establishing an Effective Knowledge Management System, held today, April 29, 2022, via Zoom and FB Live, given this 29th day of April 2022, signed by our Director, Director Richard P. Burgos, and the President of ASLP, Mr. Brian Boyce Cortez. Again, thank you very much po, Ma'am Nati and Sir Bayani. So ulitin po, ma'am, we hope we can invite you again on our future webinars. And lastly, makakalimutan ba namin kayo? Ayan, we would like to recognize all of you who join us today in this webinar for participating in the DOST-STII Library Webinar Series in partnership with the Association of Special Libraries of the Philippines. So we would like to thank you all for taking time out. Alam po namin, medyo uwian na po at nagmamadali na kayo. So thank you very much po for taking time out of your schedule to join us this afternoon. We really appreciate it, and we do hope you can all join us again on our next webinar. Again, thank you, congratulations sa mga nanalo, and stay safe po. Ingat po sa pag-uwi. Maraming salamat po.
Ayan, thank you, Ma'am Linder. Thank you
Ma'am
to our
Irene.
resource speaker.
Ma'am Irene, sorry. Oo, mag-hi lang ako. Yung mga estudyante ko nagme-message sa akin. Hello sa inyo, mga students ko. Sige, shout out sa inyong lahat. Sa asawa ko, umatan din po siya ng seminar natin. Librarian din po siya, si Ann. Thank you at sa mga classmate ko na nag-attend din po. Hello sa inyo.
Ayan. And with that, photo op po muna tayo. So sa lahat po ng mga may panelist na link, kindly open your cam for our photo op. Ayan. So ang ating tech team po ang kukuha ng mag-screenshot. Ayan. And Sir Joemar, actually po, kasali po ang inyo pong wife sa nagre-request po ng libro. Ayan.
Sir, visit kayo dito, sama niyo po yung wife niyo.
Sige po, sige po. Buong
Kasi po
pamilya po
kailangan
kami
in person
pupunta
niyo po
dyan.
kunin yung libro.
Thank you po.
Ayan. So, sige po, tech team, kayo na po bahala. Take over. Ha? Oo, i-screenshot niyo na. Ayan. So, once again, thank you so much, everyone. Ayan. And may service din po kami, part of our service. Nagkaroon kami ng ganitong service during the pandemic. So we have this online library literacy program where we do virtual orientation on the different services that DOST-STII offers, including how to navigate our online public access catalog and star books. So if you're interested, send us your email request at library@stii.dost.gov.ph. So, lahat po ng services ng STII ay libre. You can browse also our library collection at scinet.dost.gov.ph.
Okay. So dahil dyan, let us hear now yung ating closing message. Yung closing message ba natin ay recorded?
Yes po.
Okay. So, dahil patapos ng ating event, let us now hear a closing message from the President of the Association of Special Libraries of the Philippines, Mr. Brian Boy Cortez.
Director Richard P. Burgos, Department of Science and Technology, Science and Technology Information Institute, or DOST-STII. Ms. Linderlit M. Maglake, Head Librarian, DOST-STII. Our resource person, Mr. Joemar D. Sajona, Director, Management and Information Systems Office, Philippine Normal University. Association of Special Libraries of the Philippines Executive Board, DOST-STII staff, dear participants, good afternoon. This is the first webinar conducted under the Memorandum of Agreement between the Department of Science and Technology, Science and Technology Information Institute, and the Association of Special Libraries of the Philippines. These partner webinars, not just for librarians, but all interested individuals, free of charge. This webinar has continuing professional development or CPD points that licensed librarians can use in renewing their professional licenses. This webinar is indeed a success. We have more than 5,000 registrants from different fields of studies. We have librarians, teachers, school heads, students, and other professionals. Thank you very much for your support. An excellent knowledge management system can assist you in effective organizing, creating, using, and sharing collective information inside your institution. When an institution can readily access, exchange, and update business information, it may become more productive and cost-effective. The capacity to access the correct knowledge at the right time, enabled by a strong knowledge management system, forms accurate decision-making and encourage cooperation and creativity. With the expertise of our resource speaker, he was able to share to us different strategies on establishing an effective knowledge management system. It is somehow challenging to begin with this kind of program, but it will be very helpful to our institutions if implemented effectively. I hope you can share your learnings to your coworkers and most importantly to your administrators. Let us continue to learn new things, innovate, and share useful ideas. In behalf of ASLP Executive Board and DOST-STII, we want to thank you for participating in this webinar. Stay tuned to our future webinars. Good afternoon and have a great weekend.
Ayan. So that was a powerful closing message. Ayan. To be updated on our activities and services, including our upcoming webinars, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So let's stay connected. Nandyan po, naka-flash sa screen ang social media account or pages ng DOST-STII and ASLP. Ayan. So finally, here is the link of our evaluation form. Ayan. You may take a screenshot if you cannot accomplish the form today. Please be reminded that the evaluation link will be closed tomorrow at 5 p.m. 5 p.m. lang tayo, Sir Philip. So,
Right.
ayan. Only participants who successfully accomplish the attendance form and the evaluation form will be provided with certificate. So, hindi na po kami magsisend via email or via Facebook Messenger para ma-sure natin na yung mga mag-a-avail ng certificate ay yung mga nag-attend po talaga. Kasi po, may mga nagtatanong even before we had this webinar, may nanghihingi na po ng kanilang certificate. So, ayan. At dahil po yung ating certificate ay may CPD points, this can be used by licensed librarians. Ayan, sila po ang pwedeng makagamit nito. And ayan, hi River, shout out. Sorry, isingit ko lang si River. Siya yung aming avid na follower and avid supporter. Ayan. So make sure your name is correct together with your email address dun sa ilalagay kasi natin sa inyong certificates. And please expect your certificates on or before May 17, 2022, along with the recording of this webinar. So thank you so much for your participation. Sir Philip?
Okay, for our Zoom participants, you may leave when you are done accomplishing the evaluation form. Pero salamat sa inyong pag-attend at sa lahat na nandito sa amin ngayon, nakasama natin for today. Once again, this is your moderator, Felipe B. Seba Jr. or Philip, and Miss Irene.
And I am his co-moderator, Miss Irene Alice Brillo, saying stay healthy, stay safe, and God bless everyone.
Bye-bye
Salamat
po.
sa inyo. Bye.
Thank you, Philip and Irene. Thank you po, SLP and DOST. Bye-bye po.
Thank you, Sir Joemar. Thank you, Ma'am Nati and Sir Bayani.